My shift always starts the same way. A lukewarm coffee in one hand, the scent of industrial cleaner still hanging in the air, and the soft hum of the dispatch center's fluorescent lights above my head. It's not the kind of job you come into expecting excitement every night. You hope for quiet. You pray for it. In fact, I've been a 911 dispatcher for 6 years, long enough to know that the calls that change you forever never start with screaming. They don't come in loud. They don't warn you. They start in the quiet. It was a little after 1 a.m. when my console lit up. I glanced at the number. The digits didn't ring any bells. The area code was local, but the location tag read Route 9. That alone was strange. Route 9 isn't the kind of place you live. It's a thin strip of cracked asphalt running through empty farmland and the edges of forest. No houses, no gas stations, no lights. Nothing but blacktop and the occasional rusted fence post. I answered anyway, because that's the job. 911. What's your emergency? Silence. Not total silence. I could hear something faint, a soft, uneven sound. At first, I thought it was wind, maybe someone's phone pressed into a jacket pocket. But it was too steady, too human. Breathing. Slow. Shaky. Like someone trying not to be heard. Hello? Can you speak? Are you safe? I leaned forward, eyes on the waveform monitor, watching the little green bars twitch with each exhale. If you can't speak, make a noise. Tap the phone. Anything. Nothing. Just the breathing. Your call is coming from Route 9. Are you in a vehicle? Still nothing. I checked the GPS ping. The location was halfway down the road, somewhere between the tree line and an old mile marker that hasn't been maintained in years. I knew that stretch. I drove it every week to get to my sister's place. There's no cell service for miles. The only way to make a call out there would be... I stopped. The only way would be if you were using a landline. But there aren't any. Sir or ma'am, if you can't speak, I'm sending officers to your location. The breathing hitched, like they were holding it in, and then a faint clicking sound. Not tapping, not static. A wet, muffled noise, like something brushing against the receiver. I signaled to my partner, Brian, across the desk. He looked up, reading my face instantly, and started pulling up patrol logs. Caller on Route 9, I mouthed. His brow furrowed. He started typing faster. Help is on the way, I told the caller, speaking slow and calm, even though the back of my neck was prickling. Just hang on. Can you tell me what's happening? The breathing grew faster, more ragged. I could almost picture them, crouched somewhere in the dark, clutching the phone like it was the only lifeline they had. Then, without warning, the line went dead. I sat there a moment, staring at the empty screen, listening to the hum of the lights above me. Anything? Brian asked. Just breathing. No words. He shook his head. Route 9's a dead zone. Could have been a drop call. But that didn't explain the GPS ping, or why they were calling from a place no phone should work. I put in the call for a patrol car anyway. Officer Daniels was the closest. I gave him the coordinates, listened to his voice crackle over the radio as he confirmed. While he drove, I kept replaying the call in my head. The breathing. The way it changed when I said I was sending help. The wet sound. It wasn't wind. And it wasn't static. 15 minutes later, Daniels came back on the line. Dispatch. I'm at the coordinates. My hand tightened around the mic. What do you see? There was a pause. Nothing here. No cars. No houses. No lights. Just road. You're sure you're in the right spot? Yeah. Mile markers here. You said this was a live call. I hesitated. Yes. A few minutes ago. He was quiet for a long time. Then, it's dead out here. No sign of anyone. I'm heading back. I logged the incident as unresolved. That's the nice way of saying we have no idea what happened. The rest of the night was routine. Noise complaints, a drunk tank transfer, the usual. But my mind kept drifting back to that call. By the time my shift ended at 6 a.m., I convinced myself it was nothing. A prank, maybe, or someone passing through who lost signal. I didn't think about it again until the next night. It was exactly 1:13 a.m. when the same number lit up on my console. Same Route 9 tag. This time my stomach dropped. I picked up. 911. What's your emergency? The breathing was back. I could tell right away it was the same person. The rhythm was the same, slow, shallow, and close to the mic. Hello? Can you hear me? A pause. Then, so faint I almost missed it, a whisper. My name. Not my title. Not dispatcher. My actual name. I froze. No one on Route 9 knows me. No one should. Who is this? My voice was sharper than I meant. The whisper came again, just a little louder. This time, I could make out the words after my name. Don't let them find me. I sat there, the words hanging between us, my pulse thudding in my ears. Who? Who's looking for you? The breathing quickened. I could hear movement now, fabric shifting, maybe, and something else. A sound far away from the phone, muffled but distinct. Footsteps. The callers sucked in a breath, like they were trying to bury themselves in the silence. I'm sending help right now. Stay on the line. I flagged Brian, who was already looking at me with wide eyes. Same number? He mouthed. I nodded. He started pulling the GPS. But when the coordinates popped up, I felt my throat tighten. Same location. Exactly the same. No one should be standing in that spot 2 nights in a row, miles from anywhere in the dead of night. Daniels wasn't on duty, so we sent out Officer Ruiz. I told her to stay on radio the whole way there. The callers still hadn't spoken again. I kept talking softly into the line, just to let them know I was still there. Then, through the thin hiss of static, I heard something new. A low, rhythmic scrape, like metal dragging against pavement. It didn't stop, didn't speed up or slow down, just dragged. Ruiz's voice came in over the radio. Approaching the location now. Copy, I said. I heard the caller shift. The breathing grew fast and shallow. And then, the line went dead again. Ruiz checked in 2 minutes later. Dispatch, there's nothing here. I gripped the mic tighter. Nothing? No tire tracks? No footprints? Nothing. And she trailed off. And what? Her voice dropped. I've been down this stretch 100 times. I swear this mile marker's not supposed to be here. It looks new. Static crackled. Then her voice again, heading back. When I hung up, I realized my palms were damp against the console. I didn't sleep that morning. I didn't even try. You tell yourself in this job that everything has an explanation. Calls drop. People prank you. GPS pings glitch. But sometimes it feels like the call is still going. Like the line was never really disconnected. Like if I put my headset on right now, I'd still hear them breathing. And sometimes, when the night is quiet enough, I swear I told myself I'd forget about it. That's the only way to keep doing this job. You clear the board after every shift. Whatever you heard, whatever you saw, you leave it there under the hum of the fluorescent lights and the low buzz of the monitors. You walk out and you don't take it home. But Route 9 followed me. All day, it sat in the back of my head like a splinter I couldn't dig out. The sound of that breathing, the way my name came through the line, soft and deliberate, like they'd been holding in their mouth for hours, waiting to spit it out at the right moment. I replayed the patrol report in my mind. Both Daniels and Ruiz swore there was nothing there. And I believed them. They're good cops. They would have found something if there was anything to find. And yet, someone was there. Someone had called me. Twice. By the time my next shift rolled around, I was already on edge. I sat down at the console and told myself not to flinch at every call. Most would be the usual. Noise complaints, suspicious vehicles, maybe the occasional drunk trying to order a pizza through 911. It was exactly 1:11 a.m. when the same number flashed on my screen. I didn't answer right away. I stared at it for a second too long, like if I held still, it might just go away. But it didn't. I picked up the headset. 911, what's your emergency? The breathing was there again. Not rushed this time. Steady. Close to the receiver, like their mouth was almost touching it. I swallowed. Can you hear me? A pause. Then in the smallest voice, my name. It wasn't the half-formed whisper I thought I'd heard last time. This was clear. Too clear. I felt my spine straighten, my voice drop low. Who is this? Nothing. Where are you? I glanced at the GPS readout. The coordinates blinked on screen. Same exact spot as before, the same impossible place. I've got your location. I'm sending help. That's when the voice came again. Same soft tone, but this time a little faster. Don't let them find me. It wasn't a request. It was urgent. My pulse started thudding in my ears. Who's looking for you? I could hear them shifting, fabric rustling. Then something in the background. Footsteps. Not close, but not far either. Measured. slow, like someone walking through tall grass. The breathing hitched. "Talk to me," I said. "Stay on the line." I flagged the call to dispatch patrol. Tonight, it was Officer Keller who picked it up. He was already halfway out the door when I gave him the coordinates. Back on the line, I tried to keep my voice calm. "Help is on the way. Just keep breathing and don't move." The caller exhaled, shaky but stayed quiet. The footsteps grew louder. "Keller's almost there," I said. "Just hang." A sound cut me off. Not the caller, not the footsteps. Something else. A low, metallic scrape. I sat there, holding the mic, frozen. The scrape came again. Closer this time. The caller inhaled sharply, then the line went dead. I didn't even realize I was gripping the desk until my knuckles ached. Keller's voice came in on the radio 3 minutes later. "Dispatch, I'm at the coordinates. Nothing out here. Road's empty." I forced my voice steady. "Copy that. Can you check the mile marker? See if there's—" "It's here," he said. "Looks old. Same as the others." Same as the others. I glanced at Brian across the desk. He didn't say anything, but I could see the unease in his face. "Head back when you're clear," I told Keller. He clicked off without another word. The rest of the night blurred past in a haze of smaller calls. I went through the motions, logging times, patching through to medics, transferring to fire, but my mind stayed fixed on that whisper. "Don't let them find me." It played in my head on a loop. Not just the words, but the way they were said. A weight behind them, like the caller wasn't just afraid, like they already knew it was too late. By 4 a.m., the call log was quiet. Too quiet. I thought about pulling the recording to listen again, but something in me resisted. It's not like the first one. That one felt like an accident, like I could explain it away. This felt deliberate, like the voice would sound different if I played it back alone in the dark. So I didn't. The next night, I sat at my station, coffee in hand, telling myself it wouldn't happen again. It happened again. Same time, same number. My stomach dropped. This time, I answered faster. 911, what's your emergency? But it wasn't breathing I heard first. It was the footsteps. Steady, pacing. And then, my name, right away this time. No pause. No hesitation. I try to keep my tone even. "Who is this?" The voice was faint, like it was coming from the far end of a tunnel. "They're closer now." A shiver crawled up my neck. "Where are you?" I asked. "Same place." I looked at the GPS ping. Same coordinates, unmoving. "Who's with you?" Silence. Then, the scrape. Louder. It wasn't metal on pavement. Not this time. It sounded thicker, like something heavy being dragged through wet earth. The caller's breathing grew ragged. I signaled to Brian again, and he dispatched Ruiz this time. She didn't even ask questions, just took the coordinates and went. "Help is coming," I told the voice. "They won't find me." It wasn't defeat in the tone. It was certainty. And then, a third sound. Low, deep, almost a vibration more than a noise. The caller gasped. The line snapped dead. Ruiz's report came in 10 minutes later. Same as before. No sign of anyone. No tracks. No fresh debris on the road. When she got back, she stopped by the desk. "You sure these aren't prank calls?" I didn't answer. Because here's the thing. Prank calls don't use the same coordinates 3 nights in a row, in the middle of nowhere, without any way to get a signal. And prank calls don't know your name before you even answer. I should have reported it higher up. I should have logged every second of it. But something told me not to. Not because I thought I'd get in trouble, but because I didn't want anyone else picking up that call. Whatever it wasn't for anyone else. And deep down, I knew it wasn't done why the third night I couldn't pretend anymore. It wasn't a prank. It wasn't a glitch. Someone was out there. And for some reason, they'd chosen me. I didn't tell Brian I was going to drive Route 9. He would have tried to talk me out of it. He's the type who believes in chain of command and official procedure. I've been in this job long enough to know that some things fall outside the lines on the forms. My shift ended at 6 a.m. The sun was still dragging itself over the horizon when I got in my car. The morning light looked wrong, pale and watery, like it hadn't been filtered through the atmosphere right. I didn't go home. I turned straight toward the west, toward that stretch of cracked asphalt that's supposed to be just another forgotten road on a map. The last time I'd driven Route 9 was months ago in daylight to see my sister. It had been empty then, but not unsettling. Just flat farmland, skeletal trees, and the occasional deer carcass by the shoulder. But this time was different. It's hard to explain, but the air felt heavy, like the atmosphere itself was pressing down on the car. I kept my window cracked, but the only sound was my own tires grinding over the road. No birds, no wind. I watched the mile markers. They were my only reference points. I slowed down when I passed the one Keller had mentioned. I thought about pulling over, but something in my gut told me to keep going. The call had always come from just past that marker. So I watched the GPS clock tick forward as I drove. And then I saw it. A car. Not moving. Just sitting on the shoulder. It was an older model sedan, maybe mid-90s. The paint was sun-faded, the windows cloudy with dust. One tire was flat, and the hood was popped like someone had been working on it. I slowed. Looked inside. Empty. No bags. No papers. No sign that anyone had been there recently. I checked my mirror before pulling back onto the road. My hand were tighter on the wheel than I realized. Another mile, maybe two, passed before I started to feel off. It's a strange sensation, realizing you're seeing something for the second time when you shouldn't be. Up ahead, sitting on the shoulder, was the same car. Same model. Same faded paint. Same popped hood and flat tire. I stopped. This time I got out. The gravel crunched under my shoes as I walked around it. Same dust on the windows. Same empty interior. I touched the hood. Cold. I looked back down the road. It was straight for miles. No turns, no crossroads. I should have been able to see the first car behind me, but there was nothing. When I got back in my own car, my breathing felt heavier. My hand shook a little when I turned the key. I kept going. The mile markers kept climbing. 23, 24, 25. And then, the car again. This time my chest tightened. My brain tried to run through explanations. Maybe multiple abandoned cars of the same make and model. Maybe coincidence. But I already knew it wasn't that. It was the same car. Even the dirt streaks on the side were identical. I didn't stop this time. I just drove past it, trying not to look too closely. But in the corner of my eye, I thought I saw something. A shape in the driver's seat. When I glanced back, it was gone. At mile marker 30, my GPS blinked. The signal wavered and dropped to 0. I kept driving, but the world outside my windows started to feel wrong. The trees looked the same. Not just similar, the same exact arrangement. Same bent branch hanging over the road. Same cluster of dead leaves in the ditch. And then, just ahead, the car again. This time the hood was down. I gripped the wheel so hard my fingers hurt. My instincts told me to turn around, but some deeper, quieter voice inside said it wouldn't matter. I passed it. I counted the seconds this time. 42 before the road bent slightly right. 75 before it straightened again. 90 seconds later, the car. The driver's side door was open now. I drove faster. My breath felt shallow. The road kept pulling me forward, but the air smelled stale, like it hadn't been replaced in years. My ears popped. No matter how far I went, the mile markers stopped changing. I passed 32 for times, and each time, the car was waiting. By the fifth pass, the open door was wider. The back door was open too. I don't remember deciding to stop, but I must have because suddenly I was standing beside it again. The air was still heavy. My footsteps on the gravel sounded muffled, like they were happening inside my skull instead of outside. I leaned toward the open door. The interior was still empty, except for the driver's seat. It was damp, dark, like someone had just gotten out seconds ago. That's when I heard it, breathing, right behind me. I spun around, but the road was empty. Just my car, idling 20 feet away. The breathing stopped. I backed toward my car without turning around, my eyes fixed on the sedan until my hand found my own door handle. When I got inside, I locked the doors before I even sat down. The drive back should have been simple. One straight road, maybe 10 miles to the main highway. But as soon as I passed mile marker 32 again, I saw the car. This time, all 4 doors were open, and in the back seat, someone was sitting there. I didn't slow down. My hands were slick on the wheel. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I kept my eyes locked on the road ahead, but the image burned itself into my mind, the figure in the back seat. Head tilted slightly, watching me. It took me another hour to get back to familiar roads. Or at least, I think it was an hour. My dash clock froze at 7:14 the whole time. When I finally reached the highway, the GPS signal came back. The air felt lighter again. I didn't look in my mirrors until I was 2 exits from home. And when I did, I swear I saw the same faded sedan, 3 cars back, matching my speed. I haven't driven Route 9 again. I won't, but the calls still come. And now, when the line opens with nothing but breathing, I know exactly where they are. The same place I was. Still out there, on that stretch of road that doesn't end up. I just poured myself my first real cup of coffee for the night when the call came in. It was one of those slow shifts, the kind where the air in the dispatch room feels too still and the hum of the fluorescent lights gets under your skin. I answered the same way I always do. 911, what's your emergency? At first, I thought there was no one there. Just a faint hiss like the line was open, but no sound coming through. Then, I realized it wasn't silence. It was breathing. Slow, uneven, almost like whoever it was had a hand over their mouth. I tried again. This is 911. Can you speak? There was a tiny click, like someone adjusting their grip on the phone, and then a voice. It was barely more than a whisper. He's inside my house. My hand tightened around the receiver. I pressed the headset closer to my ear, like that could pull the words out of him. Sir, I need you to stay calm. Can you tell me your name? Evan, he breathed. Please be quiet. He'll hear you. That stopped me for a second. It's not something you hear often, a caller asking me to be quiet. I lower my own voice without even thinking. Evan, are you in a safe place right now? Yes, I think so. I'm in a crawl space. Something about the way he said it made my chest tighten. Crawl spaces aren't safe. They're not rooms. They're little dark gaps between the earth and the floor, full of dust and spiders and God knows what. But I didn't correct him. Where's the intruder now? There was a pause, long enough that I thought maybe he'd stopped hearing me. Then, just as I was about to speak again, he's in the kitchen. I heard the fridge open. He's eating something. My mind flicked through the usual checklist. Lock the door if you can. Stay put. Stay quiet. But the way he was talking, the fear in his voice, it was like I could see it. This wasn't just a break-in. This was hunted fear. I opened the CAD system, started typing in the address field. Evan, can you tell me your address? The static got worse. Not the normal kind of phone static. This had a strange shape to it, like the sound of an old radio halfway between stations. I could still make out his words, but it was like they were wrapped in that sound. 73, Hollow Creek Road. I typed it in. The map on my screen blinked, pulling up a little house at the edge of the county line. Rural, dark roads, the kind that don't see a car after midnight unless something's wrong. About officers on the way, Evan, I told him, my voice low and steady. Stay on the line with me, okay? You said you're in the crawl space. Yes, he whispered again. It's under the hallway. There's a panel in the floor. I can see his feet. Something in my stomach went cold. He wasn't just guessing where the intruder was. He could see him. From under the floor. What are they doing now? The breathing on the line hitched. He's standing still, right above me. I bit down on the urge to tell him not to move, because he already knew that. I could hear it in his voice, the rigid stillness, the way even his breaths were spread far apart. The static crackled louder. For a moment, I thought the call was going to drop, and my hands went tight on the console. Evan, can you still hear me? Yes. A pause. Then, barely audible, he's breathing too. I swallowed. My eyes flicked to the clock on the wall, every second crawling. The nearest unit was still 10 minutes out. 10 minutes feels different when you're listening to someone hide from whatever's walking above their head. Can you describe it? I asked. Another pause. No, I don't think he's moving like a person. Those words sat heavy in my ear. What do you mean? Evan's voice trembled. It's wrong. The way his feet, they bend. I wrote it down anyway, even though I didn't understand. Sometimes fear makes people see things differently. Sometimes adrenaline twists the image. But then I heard it, not through the headset, but faintly in the quiet of the dispatch room. A second breathing. Not mine. Not Evan's. It was so faint I thought I imagined it. And then I realized it was coming through the line. Evan, I whispered, stay quiet. The breathing on the other end stopped. The static swelled, filling the line like a storm about to break. And then, a sound that made my scalp prickle, something tapping against the floor above him. Slow, deliberate taps. Tap, tap, tap. Don't hang up, I said. I wasn't sure if I was talking to him or myself. Evan's whisper was shaking now. I think it knows I'm here. I leaned forward in my chair. Units are almost there. Just hang on. But my map screen showed the truth. They weren't almost there. The road out to Hollow Creek wound through miles of pitch-black nothing. And every second between here and there was another second he was trapped in the dark under his own house. Then, muffled through static, I heard him gasp. Oh God, it's opening the panel. I felt my pulse in my throat. Evan, can you get out another way? There's no other way, he whispered. It's crouching down. The line went quiet except for the hum and crackle. My own reflection stared back at me in the dark glass of the dispatch monitors, pale and tight-jawed. Evan, I tried again. Talk to me. I heard movement, fast, scrambling movement, then a grunt, the phone shifting in his hand. His whisper came rapid now. It's in here with me. And the static roared. Not just noise, not just interference. It was breathing through the static. Too close, too heavy. I shouted into the headset. Evan, do you hear me? Evan. The sound warped, like the phone itself was straining. And then the line went dead. I sat there for a full 3 seconds, just staring at the empty call screen, my own breath harsh in my ears. Then I was on the radio, screaming at the units to step it up, to get there now. They got a Hollow Creek Road at 1:27 a.m. The front door was open. The kitchen light was on. They found a panel in the hallway floor pulled wide open. No one inside. Not in the crawl space. Not in the house. And the phone, his cell phone, was still down there in the dirt, right where he said he was. When they brought it in, it was dead. Not just no battery. The inside was charred black, like it had been burned from within. I still remember holding in the evidence bag, the plastic crinkling under my fingers, and thinking whatever was breathing on that line wasn't just in his house. It was on the call with me that I didn't sleep much after that first call. The man's voice wouldn't leave my head, that ragged whisper, the way he kept pausing like something was listening. The crawl space, the breathing, and that strange crackle on the line, like I was talking to him through a storm from 50 years ago. The next evening, I was back at my desk. Different shift, different calls. Missing pets. Domestic disputes. A man screaming at a fast food worker because they poisoned his fries. The usual small-town madness. But every time the phone rang, I half expected it to be him again. When it finally was, I knew before I even picked up. That same breath came first. Slow, wet, like lungs too full of air, straining to keep it quiet. Then a whisper. She's right above me. I sat up straight. Sir, is this the same caller from last night? Silence. Just that low crackle. I could almost hear something faint under it. A shuffle. Nails on wood. Sir, are you in the crawl space again? No. His voice was even fainter now, like he was speaking through cloth. I'm in the wall. That stopped me cold. The wall. She's crawling on the beams. Right above my head. She knows I'm here. I felt my stomach tighten. Okay, I'm sending units. What's your address? And he gave it. No hesitation this time. Clear. Street name, number, even a rural route marker. But when I typed it into the system, my screen blinked back at me. Address not found. I re-entered it. Double-checked spelling. Nothing. Sir, I said carefully. Can you confirm your location? He repeated it exactly the same way. Then he whispered. She's closer now. Her hands are. A dull thump cut him off. Not from his voice, but through the line itself. It sounded like it came from inside my own headset. Sir, listen to me. I need you to... Don't make me talk loud, he breathed. She stops when I talk. Another thump. Then the faintest dragging noise, wood against wood. I muted my mic for a second and waved over to Marcy, the overnight supervisor. Can you run this address? I wrote it down and slid it to her. She frowned, typed it in on her terminal, shook her head. Doesn't exist, she mouthed. But the man was still on the line. I unmuted. Okay, sir, can you tell me any landmarks nearby? Cross streets? Anything. She's hanging now. His voice cracked. Her head's upside down. She's smiling at me. Her hair's in her mouth. The hairs on my arms rose. Sir, you need to get out of there. She's right above me, he said again, but this time it wasn't a whisper. It was almost sing-song. And then the line cut to pure static. Not silence. Static. I called dispatchers in the neighboring county to see if maybe it was a rural property not in our database. Nothing. They'd never heard of the road name he gave. For the rest of my shift, I kept my headset on even during breaks, half convinced he'd call back. But he didn't. I went home that morning feeling like I was walking underwater. The whole drive, I kept thinking about how sure he sounded when he said the address. Like he'd lived there for years. Like it wasn't just some made-up location. That night, before work, I tried Googling it. Same result. Nothing. But the street name, it felt familiar somehow. I couldn't place it, but it was like a word from a dream you've had before. When my shift started, I almost jumped when the first call came in. But it wasn't him. It wasn't until just after 2 a.m. that the phone clicked and I heard that same breath. She's still here. I swallowed hard. Sir, can you hear me? A pause. Then, it's been hours. She hasn't moved. I motioned for Marcy to record the call, but the signal was glitching. Her system showed no incoming number, and the waveform was barely registering. She's waiting, he murmured. Waiting for me to look up. Sir, I can't find your address in any system. Are you sure you? Don't say it. His voice suddenly sharpened. She listens when you say it. The way he said that, low and tight, made something crawl up my spine. I tried again. Is there any way you can describe the outside of your house? She's moving again, he breathed. She's folding herself. Her elbows are the wrong way. And then, in the background, I heard it. Not from his voice, but a distinct, slow creak. Like someone crawling over old wood. I didn't say anything. I just listened. Her face, he swallowed audibly. Her mouth doesn't close. Her lips are dry. They crack when she... Another loud thump directly overhead on his end. He gasped but kept whispering. I think she can hear you breathing too. I held my breath. We stayed like that for maybe 20 seconds, just the static, his faint breathing, and that occasional creak from above him. Then he whispered. I can see her teeth. The static flared for a second. Then the call dropped. By now, I was obsessed. I couldn't shake it. My coworkers thought I was rattled because of the content of the calls, which was true, but it was more than that. It was that address. The way he repeated it like he knew it was real. The way it didn't exist anywhere but his voice. 2 nights later, I was scrolling through old county plat maps on my personal laptop during a break. Marcy leaned over my shoulder. You still on your ghost hunt? She teased. I almost closed the tab, but then I saw it. An old, yellowed scan from the 1960s. The road was there. Same name. Faint but legible. In a small square marked at the far end, property of Tikel. But here's the thing. That square was drawn right over what's now an empty stretch of forest. No driveway. No house. Just trees. When I looked up, Marcy was frowning. You know, they never updated some of those old maps, right? Half of those houses are long gone. But I couldn't stop staring at it, because I realized why the name felt familiar. When I was a kid, my dad used to tell me not to play near Kells Woods. He'd never explain why, just that people got lost out there. And now some man was calling me from a crawl space, or a wall, in a house that shouldn't be there. Last night, just before 3 a.m., he called again. The moment I answered, he said, She's not above me anymore. Okay, I said slowly. Where is she? A pause. Then behind you. I froze. For a split second, I actually turned in my chair. My workstation was empty except for the dim green glow of the console. When I turned back, the line was pure static again. But under it, I swear I heard 2 slow breaths. Not as it's strange how quiet a house can be, even when you know you're not alone. That night, the silence wasn't the comforting kind. It was the kind that felt like it was holding its breath, waiting. I was sitting at my desk, half reading the incident reports from earlier in the week, half listening to the hum of the dispatch room's fluorescent lights. My coffee was already cold. I don't remember when I stopped drinking it. I kept replaying the last call in my head, the man whispering, She's right above me. It was like it had lodged itself somewhere behind my eyes. We'd traced the number again after I got off shift. Ran it through 3 different databases. The location didn't exist. Not on Google Maps, not on the old city plats, not even in the handwritten county address logs from decades ago. And yet, He knew exactly where he was. I think that's why I offered to ride along with the officers when another call came in from the same general area. It wasn't the same number, but something about the tone in the new caller's voice. It was that same brutal panic. This time, it wasn't someone above him. It was inside the walls. The caller was a middle-aged man named Raymond Harris. He said the scratching started 2 nights ago. At first, he thought it was a raccoon or maybe a squirrel. But it wasn't just scratching. He said there was breathing, slow and heavy, moving from one end of the house to the other. By the time the patrol car rolled up to his property, the sun had completely dropped behind the hills. His house sat out on the edge of the tree line, the kind of place where porch lights are swallowed whole by the dark. Raymond met us at the door, holding a flashlight even though every light in the house was on. His eyes darted to the ceiling as we stepped in. "You hear it?" he asked before anyone could even say hello. At first, I didn't. Just the low hum of the fridge and the ticking of a wall clock. But then, there it was. Scrape. Pause. Scrape, scrape. It was faint, but deliberate. One of the officers, Bennett, gave me a look like, "Yep, that's not an animal." Raymond kept wringing his hands. "It moves around. Sometimes it's in the walls, sometimes under the floor. But last night, he swallowed hard. Last night it was right under my bed." Bennett and the other officer, Cole, split up to check the basement and the upstairs. I stayed in the living room with Raymond. He didn't want to be alone. The scratching grew louder while we stood there. It was behind the wall across from us, moving toward the corner. Cole's voice crackled over the radio from upstairs. "There's something. Hang on. Bennett, you need to see this." Raymond's knuckles went white around his flashlight. We went up the narrow staircase, the wood creaking under each step. Cole was standing at the end of the hallway, his flashlight aimed at a patch of wall just above the baseboard. The paint there was cracked, and through the gap, I could see deep grooves carved into the wood beneath. They weren't the random scratches an animal might leave. They were parallel, purposeful, like someone had dragged their nails slowly, over and over again, until the wood gave way. Bennett muttered something under his breath. Raymond's breathing picked up. "I don't care if it's a person or an animal or whatever the hell it is. I just want it gone." We followed the noise to a small door at the end of the hall, the kind that leads to a crawl space under the roof. Cole pulled it open. A puff of air drifted out, stale and cold, smelling faintly of dirt and old wood. The beam of his flashlight revealed the inside, empty. Just dusty planks, insulation, and shadows. But the scratching didn't stop. It was inside the walls now, traveling along the length of the crawl space. Cole climbed in, his boots thudding softly against the boards. I stayed at the opening, my flashlight cutting through the gloom. Then he stopped. "Guys." His voice was tight. We joined him inside. The further we crawled, the colder it got. My knees pressed into the dusty boards, and every movement stirred the air into something that smelled like mildew and copper. And then we saw them. The claw marks. They were everywhere. Deep grooves gouged into the beams, the floorboards, even the underside of the roof. Some were so deep they splintered through to the other side. But what froze me wasn't the depth. It was the direction. The marks weren't random. They were concentrated in long, desperate arcs, all aimed toward the inside of the crawl space. As if something had been trying to get in. Raymond wouldn't crawl in any further. He stood at the opening, his flashlight shaking. "That wasn't here when I moved in. I swear to God." Bennett ran his hand along one of the grooves. "These are big. Too big for a raccoon. And they're old. Years, maybe." The scratching stopped. We all froze, holding our breath. Then, a faint thump. It came from directly under us. Cole and Bennett exchanged a glance, and we backed out of the crawl space. The sound followed us, slow, dragging thuds, moving toward the center of the house. We traced it down the staircase, into the living room, then to the hallway that led to the kitchen. And then silence. Raymond's voice broke the stillness. "It's under the floor." We crouched down, pressing our ears to the boards. For a moment, there was nothing. Then scratching. This time softer, almost like it was testing the wood. The basement was unfinished, just dirt and support beams. We went down together, flashlights sweeping the space. The beams were normal. No signs of nests or burrows. No tracks. But in the center of the room, Directly beneath the living room, the dirt was disturbed. Not like it had been dug by a shovel. More like something had shifted under it, pressing upward. Bennett knelt down. There's a gap under here. He brushed at the dirt until the edge of a board showed, a hidden section of floor. He pried it up. Underneath was a hollow space. It was maybe 2 feet high, lined with old boards. The air that rose out of it was cold enough to make me shiver. My flashlight cut across the interior. Empty, except for the marks. The same deep, desperate claw marks, gouged into every surface. We didn't find an animal. We didn't find a person. There was no sign of how anything could have gotten in or out. Raymond didn't stay in the house that night. He packed a bag and left with a friend. The next day, Bennett called me. They'd gone back in daylight, checked every inch of the place. The marks were still there. But now there was something else. Fresh scratches, right across the living room floorboards. And they hadn't been there the night before. I didn't want to listen to it again. I'd already heard enough that night to keep me from sleeping, but the captain told me we had to review the recording for clarity. Clarity. That's a funny word for what I was about to hear. The dispatch room was quiet except for the low hum of the fluorescent lights. The rest of the team had gone home. It was just me, the captain, and the audio log pulled up on the monitor. I stared at the waveform, this jagged blue line stretched across the screen. My name was in the file description, along with the timestamp, 2:14 a.m. That was the call, the one that made my stomach twist. I slid the headphones on, and before the captain could say anything, I pressed play. Static. That's normal. Every call has a second or two of dead air before it connects. But this wasn't dead air. This was breathing. Slow, steady like someone standing in the dark, just holding the phone and waiting. It was my own breathing. I recognized the rhythm immediately, the way I sometimes exhale through my nose when I'm focusing. I froze. Then a voice spoke. My voice. County Dispatch, what's your emergency? The sound rattled in my ears. It wasn't a recording from later in the call. It was right there before I'd even picked up. The call hadn't even connected yet, but I could hear myself answering. I looked at the captain, but he was staring at the monitor like he didn't quite know what he was seeing. This must be a glitch, he muttered, but he didn't sound sure. I kept listening. There was a short pause on the tape, and then the voice on the other end, low, broken, almost whispering, said, "You're not supposed to be here." It wasn't a voice I recognized, but the me on the recording, she didn't react. She just kept talking. Calm, collected. "Can you tell me your location?" My chest tightened. I remembered exactly how the real call started that night. Dead air, then a man shouting about someone in his house. Not this. This wasn't how it happened. I stopped the playback. "This isn't the same call," I said. "This is something else." The captain leaned back, his arms crossed. "But the timestamp is the same, and you're the only dispatcher on that channel." I wanted to argue, but my throat felt dry. Against my better judgment, I pressed play again. The voice on the other end didn't give an address, didn't give a name. It just kept whispering things I couldn't quite make out, like someone mumbling in a dream. The only words that came through clearly were, "Under the floor." The me on the recording asked questions like she was reading from script. "How long had you been there? Is anyone else inside?" It was cold, unnatural, like she was pretending to be me, but didn't quite know how. And then I heard something I can't explain. It was the sound of the dispatch room itself. My dispatch room. The subtle creak of the rolling chair. The faint tick of the wall clock. Even the soft drip of the old coffee maker in the corner. It wasn't background noise, it was live. The captain shifted uncomfortably, and I knew he'd noticed too. The call went on for maybe 2 minutes, but it felt like an hour. And then, the other me said something I wish I'd never heard. "Don't answer the next one." Static swallowed the rest. I ripped the headphones off. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then the captain cleared his throat. Maybe the recorder glitched. Picked up an old feed. Something, but I could tell he didn't believe it. When I went home that morning, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I replayed every second in my head. I thought about the way her tone felt wrong, like she was talking to the caller, but also to me. The next night, I came in early. The room was empty, and I pulled up the system log. I wanted to see if there were any technical issues around 2:14 a.m. No network errors. No drop packets. No sign of a cross-channel bleed. The recording was clean. Too clean. That's when I noticed something else. At the exact same moment the phantom call started, another incoming call registered on the system, but it was marked not answered. That's impossible. I'd been at my desk the whole time. I never saw a second line ringing. I clicked on it. No caller ID. Just the words, source unknown. Against every instinct, I opened the audio file. There was no static this time. No breathing. Just a voice. My voice. I told you not to answer. I slammed the window closed so hard my hand shook. I didn't tell the captain about that one. From then on, every time the phone rang, my chest tightened. I'd glance at the caller ID, half expecting it to say source unknown. I started hesitating before picking up, like maybe the warning was real. Then came the night when it wasn't my line that rang. It was my personal cell phone. I don't give that number out. It's not on any public directory. The display said blocked caller. I answered, and before I could say a word, I heard it. County Dispatch, what's your emergency? My own voice, crisp and clear. I hung up. I didn't sleep that night. When I came in for my shift, I almost told the captain I was done, that he needed to reassign me. But before I could, he stopped me in the hallway. We had another one, he said quietly. Another me. This time, the caller had been a woman trapped in her basement during a blackout. She swore she'd already spoken to me. Said I told her I'd send help. But when officers arrived, there was no one in the basement. No signs of anyone living there at all. Her voice, he said, was trembling when she told him. She sounded just like her. Same voice. Same words. But she said she was the real one. I went pale. The captain just nodded like he already knew. That night, I didn't touch the phone unless I had to. But near the end of my shift, the call came in. It was faint, weak, almost drowned in static. You can't keep both lines open, my voice said. One of us has to go. I hung up before she could finish. But I swear, right before the call disconnected, I heard her breathing, and it was coming from right behind me. I still remember the sound of his voice. It was the kind of panic that makes your own hands shake, even if you're not the one in danger. It started like any other late shift. The room was dim, the glow of the monitors painting everything in cold blue light. Outside, the wind rattled against the windows of the dispatch center. It was a quiet night for County Line, too quiet, actually. The storm they predicted earlier in the day had never come, but something in the air felt heavy, like the world was holding its breath. I was halfway through a mug of stale coffee when the call came in. Unknown number. Rural area code. I put my headset on. 911. What's your emergency? What came through wasn't words at first. It was breathing. Fast. Uneven. And underneath it, a strange clicking noise. I thought it was a bad connection at first. Then he spoke. They're in the field. Just like that. No introduction, no hello, nothing. I sat up straighter. Sir, slow down. Who's in the field? He let out this sharp, shuddering inhale, like he was trying to keep from crying. They're moving. They're getting closer. I glanced at the map feed, trying to trace the call's location. Okay, where are you right now? Can you give me your address? There was a pause, and I could hear the faint creak of floorboards under him. Then, no, they'll hear me. My stomach tightened. Sir, you need to stay calm. I need your location so we can send help. That's when I noticed something strange. The map feed wasn't showing his position. Normally, even in the middle of nowhere, we could at least get an approximate location. But his line was just blank. A void. I tried again. Are you inside your house? Yes. But the power's out. Whole road's dark. His voice dropped to a whisper. I can see them from the window. That's when I realized what the clicking sound was. It wasn't the phone line. It was his teeth. He was shaking so bad they were chattering. What do you see? I asked quietly. Shadows, he said, like the word tasted wrong in his mouth. Not people, just shapes, moving through the grass. Taller than me. There's no light, but I can still see them. Every instinct in me wanted to tell him it was animals, or the wind, or that his eyes were playing tricks on him. But something about the way he said it, the dead certainty in his tone, made me hold my tongue. I typed in a request for patrol, even without a confirmed address. The nearest unit was 20 minutes out. Too far. Sir, what's your name? He didn't answer at first. Then, like he just remembered I was there, he said, Daniel. Okay, Daniel. I'm going to stay on the line with you until help arrives. Can you lock all your doors and windows? They're already locked. His whisper was frantic now. But it doesn't matter. They're not touching the ground. That made me freeze. What do you mean? They're floating. I stared at the monitor. The line signal strength was fluctuating in a way I'd never seen before. Spiking, dropping, spiking again. I didn't know if it was the blackout or something else, but the connection felt wrong. Daniel spoke again, more urgently now. They're closer. There's 4 of them. No 5. His voice cracked. They're spreading out. They're surrounding the house. I could hear the wind pick up on his end, but there was no normal wind howl, just this low, drawn-out hum, like air vibrating against glass. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my own voice steady. Daniel, listen to me. Go to the safest room in your house. Somewhere without windows. He didn't move. I could tell by the background noise. Instead, he whispered, "One of them's looking at me." My pulse kicked up. How can you tell? I can feel it. The way he said it, flat, certain, sent a chill down my spine. I tried another approach. Daniel, can you tell me exactly where you live? A street name, anything. But his breathing suddenly went sharp. I heard the squeak of floorboards. It's at the door. My hand hovered over the intercom button to alert the patrol car again, but before I could, the line crackled violently. The hum grew louder, like it was inside my own headset now. Daniel, talk to me. What's happening? No answer. Just the hum. And then, faintly, the sound of something tapping against wood. Slow. Measured. Is that the knocking? I asked. He exhaled shakily. Not knocking. It's under the door. I didn't understand at first. Then I pictured it. Something reaching, tapping along the inside of the door frame. From the outside, the hum pitched higher. My ears were ringing. And then, clear as day, I heard it. A voice. Not Daniel's. Not mine. It said, "Let me in." It wasn't a shout. It wasn't a growl. It was polite, gentle, and it sounded like it was coming from the base of the door, just like Daniel had described. "Daniel, do not open that door," I snapped. I'm not, he whispered. But his voice was breaking now. "It sounds like me." "What do you mean?" "It's using my voice." The hum cut out for a split second, and in that moment, I realized I couldn't hear the wind anymore, or the floorboards, or anything, just him breathing and that soft imitation of his voice outside. I typed another urgent note to the patrol. Possible home invasion, suspect unknown, but the GPS still showed nothing. Daniel spoke again. "There's another one. At the back." I heard the faint, hollow creak of his back door shifting. Then the other voice came. This one wasn't using his voice. It was using mine. It said, "Daniel, it's okay. You can come out now." I swear to God, Salah, it sounded exactly like I do when I'm talking to a scared caller. Calm, soothing, exactly the words I might use. I almost yanked the headset off. Daniel's breathing turned to short, fast gasps. Why do they sound like us? I don't know. I told him, and it was the truth. Just stay away from the doors. Stay away from the windows. The line glitched again, a burst of static swallowing his reply. When it cleared, he was whispering even lower now. "They're inside." I froze. "How? You locked." They didn't open anything. They just came through. The static roared again, drowning him out completely. My screen flashed an error I'd never seen. Signal lost. "Daniel? Daniel, can you hear me?" Nothing. I tried to redial, but every time, the line went dead before it even rang. It was like his number had just stopped existing. I kept the patrol car en route, but without an address, they could only guess. I stayed on the line with the system's open channel, listening for any sign he might still be connected somehow. About 8 minutes later, the power flickered back on in most of the county. Calls started flooding in, down lines, alarms reset by the blackout, all the usual post-outage chaos. The patrol called in. They'd driven up and down county line twice. No sign of a house matching Daniel's description. No footprints in the fields. No tire tracks. Nothing. It was like he'd never been there at all. But here's the thing. When I checked the call logs later, the recording of my conversation with him was corrupted. It wouldn't play all the way through. But the first few seconds, that's the part one can't stop thinking about. The tape starts with my voice. Calm. Clear. Exactly like when I answer the phone. Except on the recording, I'm speaking before the call even connected. When the power first went out, we thought it was just a local thing. A blown transformer. Maybe a storm somewhere down the line. Nothing strange. But by the next evening, we knew it wasn't local. The station was running on generator power. Half the monitors were black. The dispatch software was barely staying connected to the network. Calls were coming in slower, like the lines were struggling to carry them. And the voices on the other end, they didn't just sound worried. They sounded wrong. It was a quiet kind of wrong. Not frantic like a fire or a break-in. Not rushed. Just careful. I'd been on the console for about an hour when the first one came in. A woman's voice, maybe late 40s. I could hear wind in the background, that wide-open rural sound you get out here. There's lights in my field, she said. What kind of lights? I asked. She hesitated. They move. Not like a car. Not like a flashlight. Do you mean moving around? Like walking. Another pause. Then a whisper, like she didn't want to be overheard. Floating. I asked if anyone else could see them, and she said her husband was asleep. She didn't want to wake him because, and here she trailed off. Because what? But before I could ask, she said something that made me sit up straighter. They go away when I get close. I try to keep my voice steady. Ma'am, where exactly are you? She gave me a county road number I recognized, 2 towns over. The power's out here, she added. I thought maybe it was trucks or the utility company. But they're not right. What do you mean, not right? She lowered her voice again. They know I'm looking. The line went dead before I could say another word. No click, no beep, just silence. I tried to call back, but the system kept throwing errors. 5 minutes later, another call came in. Different number, different location. Same story. Faint lights in the distance. Moving. Gone when approached. By midnight, we'd had 7. Most were from the far edges of the county. All rural. All in areas where the blackout was worst. And they were spreading. The next county overcalled to ask if we'd been getting the same reports. We compared notes. Same descriptions. Same vanishing act when anyone tried to get closer. It was starting to feel like we were tracking something. Something with no sound, no shape. Just a glow in the dark where no glow should be. Around 1:15 a.m., the generator lights in the station flickered. Only for a second, but long enough for everyone in the room to glance at each other. We were the only light for miles. Outside, the town was nothing but silhouettes against the faint shine of the moon. I kept thinking about the people calling us, standing at their windows, watching those lights move across empty fields. And then the next call came in. It was a guy named Turner. I'd spoken to him a few times before about livestock thefts. He lived way out past County Line Road, where the highway turns to gravel and then just ends. His voice was shaking. They're in my pasture. The lights. I asked. A pause. You've had other calls? Yes, sir. Where exactly are they now? He was breathing hard, like he'd been running. Far fence, near the creek. There's 3 of them, moving together. I told him to stay inside, but he cut me off. No, you don't get it. I went out there. I thought maybe it was kids. Or drone. I took my shotgun. But every time I stepped closer, they'd move just far enough away that I couldn't see what was making them. Like they were staying just barely out of reach. His voice dropped to a whisper, and then one of them stopped. It waited for me. The hair on my arms went up. What happened then? It went out. Just gone. Like it had never been there. But the others kept moving. And now, he trailed off. Now, what? I asked. They're closer. The line went fuzzy. Static. Then nothing. By 2 a.m., the blackout had spread into 3 more counties. Radio chatter from field units was breaking up. Even the landlines at the station were acting strange. Sometimes they'd ring once and then stop. Sometimes we'd pick up and hear nothing but wind. I kept thinking about the way people describe the lights. Not like vehicles. Not like flashlights. Moving in ways that didn't make sense. At 2:30, one of the deputies radioed in from the edge of the blackout zone. His voice was clipped, tense. I've got something in the field. Looks like blue-white, maybe 100 yards out. No sound. No heat signature on the scope. I asked if he could get closer. He didn't answer for a long time. When he finally came back, his voice was lower. It's gone. The rest of the night blurred. More calls. More dead air. A family said they saw lights circling their barn. A truck driver reported something gliding across an empty stretch of highway before disappearing completely. And then there was the teenager who swore the lights had followed him home from the bus stop. Each story was different in the details, but the shape of it was always the same. Something there. Then not. Seen, but never reached. By dawn, the power company still hadn't given us a reason for the outage. The map of the blackout was a jagged shape covering half the region, like someone had taken a knife to the grid. When I finally drove home, the streets were still dark. My headlights caught empty porches, dark windows, and fields that looked deeper than usual, like the shadows had waited. Halfway down my road, I slowed. Out past the tree line, where the ground dips into the marsh, something faint flickered. Just for a second, a pale blue light. Then gone that I'd been staring at the county outage map, so long that the shape started to look like something else. Not towns, not borders, just pieces of a body hollowed out. Every few minutes, the map would refresh, and another patch of yellow, meaning affected, would swallow up more of the black grid. The blackout was eating its way outward. The fluorescent lights in the dispatch room had been cut earlier. The generator kept the consoles alive, but the room was mostly lit by the blue-white glare of monitors. Everything outside the station was just shadow. It had been hours since I'd taken a normal call. They all had the same start now. Someone whispering, asking if we knew what the lights were. Not headlights, not lanterns, lights that moved in ways lights shouldn't. When I'd ask where they saw them, the callers' voices would break. They never gave an address, just directions, like they were pointing from wherever they were hiding. Past the mill road, moving across the ridge, too far to be a car, that sort of thing. It was strange. If they were that far away, there was no reason for their voices to shake like they were. Unless the distance they thought they had wasn't real. A soft clicking came from the far corner of the room. It was the printer spitting out a fresh incident log, some power company auto feed I'd set to run every 30 minutes. I got up, the chair's wheels squeaking on the tile, and took the page. The list of outages stretched longer now, creeping past our borders into the next county. No ETA for repairs. No cause listed. I glanced at the map again. The whole east side of the county was gone. No power. No street lamps. Just the dark, swallowing farms, houses, the long, empty roads. Something caught my eye through the station's wide front window. At first, I thought it was the reflection from one of my monitors, but no, it was outside. A pinprick of light, far across the fields. I froze, the paper still in my hand. It wasn't steady like a lamp. It swayed, dipped, then rose again. I leaned closer to the glass. Another light appeared beside it. Faint, almost silver instead of white. It slid forward, then paused. Then, like a breath, they both vanished. I stood there, waiting for them to come back. For a long time, there was only the dark. Then a single pinpoint blinked in again, but farther left. Not possible, I thought. That ridge was at least 5 miles out. And yet, in the heavy quiet of the blackout, it looked closer than it should have. The radio crackled behind me. I jumped, turning too fast. "Dispatch, this is Unit 6, a voice said. Got a moving light situation here, east of County Line Road." I pressed the button. "Unit 6, copy. Can you describe?" A pause. Then, they keep blinking out when I get close. Not sure if I'm looking at the same ones each time or different ones. I asked his distance from the ridge. His answer made the skin on my neck pull tight. "About 6 miles, he said. But they're big." The line hissed with static for a second, then cleared. "Feels like they're watching me." I swallowed, keeping my voice even. "Stay in your vehicle, 6. He didn't reply right away. When he did, his voice was lower. "They're moving toward the station, aren't they?" I didn't answer, because from where I was standing, I could see them again. 2 no, 3 now. The third one trailing behind, flickering like a candle about to go out. And they were closer. I knew the outage map said the nearest report was still miles away. But my eyes told me something else. I backed away from the window. Every call that night replayed in my head. The voices. The breathless way they'd said they're coming. The printer clicked again. Just one sharp snap of its gears like it was waking up. I flinched hard. My nerves were wired too tight. Another unit radioed in from the north, saying he'd seen something in the distance, like searchlights. Only there weren't any vehicles out there. and the beams didn't cut the air. They just glowed without touching the ground. A cold draft slid along the floor. I pulled my jacket tighter, even though the generator kept the room warm. It wasn't the temperature. It was that sense you get when the air isn't empty anymore. I checked the map again. It refreshed, and my stomach dropped. A small icon flashed. Outage confirmed, directly over the station's location. But we still had power. The generator hummed steady. The monitors still glowed. The phone still worked. The lights outside the window were brighter now. I told myself not to look, but I did anyway. They weren't pinpoints anymore. They were shapes. Not tall, not wide, just enough of a glow to suggest something was there, moving with slow, patient steps. I counted 3 again, but when I blinked, there were 4. The fourth one moved faster than the others. It would vanish, then reappear ahead, like it was leapfrogging closer. I thought of all the reports, how the callers swore the lights vanished when they approached. I had assumed it was distance, angles, terrain. But now, what if they weren't vanishing at all? What if they were just skipping forward? The glass reflected my own pale face back at me. For a moment, I wasn't sure if the faint shimmer on my shoulder was from outside or inside the station. I turned sharply. Nothing behind me. The phone rang, sharp, too loud. I grabbed it. Dispatch. It was a woman's voice, ragged. "You see them, don't you?" I froze. "Ma'am, where are you calling from?" She ignored the question. "Don't look too long. That's how they find you." The line went dead. The radio blurted again. "Unit 6, his voice tight now. Dispatch, be advised, I think." Static swallowed him. The generator flickered, just once. My breathing was loud in the room. Outside, the lights were so close now, I could make out a faint halo on the ground beneath them. Not a perfect circle, more like ripples, as if the light was bending. One of them broke away from the rest and stopped directly across from the window. I couldn't see through it, couldn't see into it. It was like it was made of the same stuff the blackout had spread, pure, heavy dark, except for that glow around its edges. I stepped back, my heels hitting the base of my chair. The map refreshed again. Now it showed the entire county in outage. The whole thing. And yet, here I was, still lit by the monitors, still hearing the low buzz of the generator. I didn't want to turn toward the glass again, but something in me needed to know. There were 5 now. The farthest one was already at the edge of the parking lot. The closest, I swear I saw it tilt like it was trying to match the angle of my head. I killed the lights of the room. The glow outside pulsed once, faint, then again, stronger. And for the first time, I heard something. Not voices, not footsteps, just a low, steady hiss like the sound between radio stations when you're almost on the right frequency. It was coming from all directions. The phone rang again. I didn't answer. The hiss grew louder. The glow began to strobe, almost in rhythm. My eyes hurt to watch it, so I looked away. The outage map refreshed one last time. And there was nothing. No grid. No lines. No towns. Just a blank gray void. The hiss turned sharp, almost like whispering, but in a language that didn't belong here. I couldn't move. Outside, the lights stopped. Perfectly still. Then, one by one, they blinked out. The parking lot was empty. The ridge was dark. The fields were silent. But I knew, deep in my chest, that they hadn't gone far, and that the map wouldn't bring the grid back. Not this time. That I've worked dispatch for 5 years, and in that time, I've taken every kind of call you can imagine. Screaming parents, whispered confessions, people who thought they were dying, people who actually were. But I've never heard my own voice on the other end. It started like any other late shift, past midnight, the kind of stillness where the world feels thin, like if you spoke too loudly, something on the other side might hear you. The station's lights hummed above me. My coffee had gone lukewarm. The board in front of me blinked with idle green, waiting for the next burst of chaos. There's a rhythm to the night. You start to feel it in your bones. The quiet stretches, the sudden jolt of the phone, the slow return to calm. You begin to believe you can predict the next ring. But that night, I didn't. The phone lit up at 12:43 a.m. A local number I didn't recognize. No big deal. Most calls come in from random numbers, cell towers bouncing them around. I pressed the headset button, adjusted the mic. 911, what's your... Don't say it. That stopped me cold. It It was my voice. Not just similar, not a cousin, not a sister, not someone who happened to share my tone. It was my voice. Same inflection, same pace, even a tiny hitch I make before certain words. I blinked at the board, my throat tightening. I'm sorry. You'll ruin it if you say the line. You know the one. It wasn't possible. It wasn't a prank. Not unless someone had hours of my recordings and could stitch them together in perfect real time. Even then, the breathing, the pauses, they matched mine exactly. I tried to keep my tone steady. What's your emergency? On the other end, I heard a faint inhale, my inhale, and then, that's better. You sound calmer now. I need you to listen to me, because I don't have much time before the switch. I gripped the desk. The switch. It's going to happen soon. You'll feel it first in your left hand. The tingling. You know that feeling when your hand falls asleep? That's the start. I glanced down at my hand, half expecting to see it trembling. It wasn't. What is this? Who is this? I asked. You already know, the voice said, almost gently. I'm you, the real you, the one that's been waiting. A bead of sweat slid down my neck. If this is a joke, jokes don't leave marks. Something in my tone made my stomach knot. It wasn't smug. It wasn't teasing. It was inevitable. I swallowed. What marks? You haven't found them yet. You will. They start small, just under the ribs, like bruises but deeper. Press there tomorrow morning. You'll feel them. My chair creaked as I leaned back, scanning the room. Dispatch at night feels like a bubble. You're alone, but the air is charged, like someone might be standing just behind you even when you know they're not. I try to keep her talking. If you're me, then prove it. You want a memory? The voice asked. Fine. The first call you ever took here wasn't an emergency. It was a man asking for the weather. You told him you weren't allowed to give that kind of information, and he called you a stupid girl and hung up. You didn't tell anyone because you thought they'd laugh at you. My pulse thudded in my ears. That had been 3 years ago. I'd never mentioned it to a soul. Or maybe you want something more personal, she continued. Like how you never told your sister you threw out that letter she wrote you. The one she said you wouldn't understand. I stood up then, my legs unsteady. My eyes darted to the corners of the room. Every shadow seemed too deep. This isn't funny, I said, my voice tight. It's not supposed to be. Then what do you want? My voice dropped lower. I'm telling you, so you'll be ready. Because when it happens, you'll be scared. And if you're scared, you'll lose. I pressed my palm against my thigh, grounding myself. Lose what? That's the wrong question. She was quiet for a long moment. I could hear faint static, like an untuned radio, but beneath it was something else, a shuffling sound, wet and deliberate. I almost asked, where are you? But some part of me didn't want the answer. Then she said, they're going to give you a choice. You won't think it's a choice at first, but it is. And you'll pick wrong unless you remember this call. I try to focus. Who's that? The static flared. My own voice came back through the line, but it was different now, sharper, like it had been played through a bad speaker. You're going to hang up in 5 seconds, she said. You won't mean to. You'll tell yourself you lost the connection. But it won't be an accident. I tightened my grip on the headset. I'm not hanging up. The line went dead. No click. No fade. Just gone. I sat there, breathing hard, the empty tone buzzing in my ear. I called the number back. Straight to a dead line. Not even voicemail, just the dull hum of nothing. For the rest of the shift, I couldn't stop glancing at my left hand. It felt fine. Normal. But every so often I thought I felt the faintest prickle in my fingers like a warning. When the sun came up, I went home and didn't sleep. I pulled off my shirt in the bathroom, standing under the harsh light, and pressed under my ribs. Nothing. No bruises. Still, I kept checking. And that night, I found one dot when I clocked out that night. I told myself I was fine. I told myself the voice on the line was just a prank. Some tech freak with a soundboard and too much time. But I couldn't stop replaying it. The way it wasn't just my voice, it was my voice thinking. My cadence. My tiny pauses between words. My tone when I'm nervous. And then the part that scared me most, the breath. It wasn't obvious unless you listen hard, but I did. I could hear the small, shaky exhales I make when I'm trying to hide anxiety. The exact rhythm. I've never heard anyone else breathe like me before. By the time I got home, it was past midnight. My apartment was quiet, like it always was. I live on the 3rd floor, facing the alley. Not a nice alley, dumpsters, flickering light, broken glass kind of alley. But I'd gotten used to it. I kicked off my shoes and set my keys in the little dish by the door. Everything was exactly where I left it. Couch, TV, laundry basket I still hadn't touched. My mug from that morning still sitting on the counter with a little swirl of coffee at the bottom. I kept telling myself I was being dramatic. Dispatchers hear awful things every day. Weird things. That's part of the job. But I didn't usually hear myself. I tried to distract myself. Made tea, scrolled on my phone, played a mindless game. It worked for maybe an hour. Then, around 1:30, I realized I was just staring at my dark TV screen. And the thought hit me like a weight. What if she wasn't lying? The real one thing. I'd brush it off because how else do you respond? But the way she'd said it, not like she was trying to convince me. Like she already knew I didn't believe her, and it didn't matter. My tea was cold by the time I picked it up. I decided to just go to bed and forget it. I woke up at 4:17 a.m. Not because of sound, not because of a dream. I just woke up, heart pounding, skin prickling like something had brushed past me. It was too quiet. Not city quiet. Not my apartment quiet. Wrong quiet. I live in a building where you can always hear something. Neighbors walking overhead, pipes ticking, someone's TV. But in that moment, there was nothing. Not even the faint hum of my fridge. I swung my legs off the bed. The carpet was cold, colder than it should have been. I reached for my phone on the nightstand. No signal. That had never happened here before. I stared at the little no service in the corner of the screen, my chest tightening. Then I noticed something else. The time on my phone hadn't changed. Still 4:17 a.m. I sat there for what felt like 5 minutes, watching it, waiting for 4:18. It never came. That's when my phone buzzed. A call. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. Instinct, I guess. My dispatcher brain kicking in. And I heard my own voice. "You're still in bed," she said. I froze. Her tone was calm, like she'd been expecting me to pick up. "You need to listen to me this time," she said. "There's no more pretending." I tried to speak, but my throat felt locked. "You left your front door unlocked," she went on. "It's been unlocked since you got home. You didn't even check it. That was mistake number one." I swallowed hard, glancing toward my bedroom doorway. I could see the faint glow from the living room. She kept talking. "Mistake number two, you left your tea out. I told you to pour it down the sink before bed. Do you remember?" "No, of course you don't. Because you haven't lived this yet." Her words were too smooth, too sure. "I don't know who you are." I managed to whisper. "Yes, you do," she said. "I'm you. I'm the one who survives tonight." I felt my blood turn to ice. She started listing things. My chipped mug with a blue handle. The dent on the left side of my fridge from when I dropped a pan 2 years ago. The black hoodie I wore yesterday that's still crumpled on the couch. All things she could have guessed. But then she said, "And the letter in your nightstand drawer, the one you've never opened. You keep it under the little stack of receipts because you don't want to think about what's inside." I couldn't breathe. No one knew about that letter. Not even me, technically. It came 3 years ago. No return address. I'd shoved it into the drawer the same day without opening it. Some part of me didn't want to know who sent it. And now she was telling me. "There's a knock coming," she said. "Don't answer it. Not even if they call your name." I sat there, clutching the phone, waiting. And then a knock. Soft. 3 times. My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear. She whispered now, almost like she was afraid of being overheard. "They're not here for you. They're here for me. But they don't know which one of us is which yet." I shook my head. This is insane. Another knock. Louder. And then a voice. My neighbor, Mrs. Lorne. She's in her 70s. Sweet woman. "Clara," she called. "You awake?" I need help." I started to get up. "Don't." My voice on the phone snapped. "That's not her. Listen to me. If you open that door, I'm gone. And then you'll be me, stuck on the other side. Try to warn yourself." Her words didn't make sense. None of it did. But I couldn't move. The knock stopped. Silence again. My phone screen went black. When I looked at the clock, it was 4:18. Everything sounded normal again. The fridge hum, the pipes ticking. I ran to the door and checked the lock. She was right. I hadn't turned it. I locked it, then checked every window twice. I barely slept after that. When I woke again, the sun was coming through the blinds, and my phone said 7:02 a.m. No missed calls. No record of anything from 4 a.m. I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. Until I walked into the kitchen and saw my tea. Still sitting on the counter. Still cold. And next to it, a folded piece of paper that wasn't there before. The envelope from my nightstand drawer. Open. I'd been staring at the phone for what felt like an hour after the last call ended. The screen was dark now, but the sound of that voice, the voice that was mine but not mine, was still rattling around in my head. It wasn't just the way she spoke. It was the way she knew things. Details no stranger could possibly know. The color of my bedsheets. The chipped mug I kept my pens in. The fact that I sometimes slept with one leg hanging off the bed, even in winter. I kept telling myself there had to be some explanation. Maybe she was a neighbor. Maybe she'd found some way to peek into my apartment. I wanted to believe that, because the other possibility was too insane to even think about. But that night, she called again. It was almost midnight when the phone lit up. Unknown number. No ringtone this time, just the buzz against my desk. For a second, I thought about letting it go to voicemail. But I couldn't. Some part of me needed to hear her again. Needed to understand. I answered. Hello. No breathing this time. No pause. Just her voice instantly. You're wearing the black sweater again. I froze. It was true. I was wearing my black sweater, the one with the loose thread on the left cuff. I looked down at it, like maybe she'd see me checking. You're at your desk, she said softly. Your left hand is resting on your cheek. Your hair, it's tucked behind your ear. My mouth went dry. I wasn't moving. I hadn't made a sound. She kept going. There's an empty glass to your right. You finished the water about 10 minutes ago. You thought about getting more, but you didn't want to get up. It's too cold in the kitchen. I didn't remember thinking that. But I had. Ow, my voice cracked. How do you know that? She chuckled. It was such a small, almost kind sound, but it made my stomach twist. I told you, she whispered. I'm here. Something shifted in the air around me. I can't explain it. Like the room suddenly had weight. I turned in my chair slowly, scanning the corners, the shadows. Nothing. Where? I asked, my voice low. She didn't answer right away. I could hear something, though, a faint sound, almost like the soft static hum you get from a radio that isn't tuned. When she spoke again, her voice was closer. Stop looking. Just keep your eyes forward. I hesitated, then turned back toward my desk. Good, she said. Now, pick up the pen in front of you. I stared at it. The blue ballpoint lying next to my notebook. I didn't want to touch it. I didn't want to give her that control. I'm not playing your game, I said. Her sigh was almost disappointed. But you already are. I don't know why, but my fingers moved. I picked up the pen. Now tap it against the desk. 3 times. I did. The sound echoed in my ears, too loud for such a small action. She whispered, I can feel that. A shiver crawled down my spine. I put the pen down quickly. Who are you? I asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she started describing me again. You're frowning now. You're biting the inside of your cheek. You do that when you're nervous, don't you? I opened my mouth to tell her to stop, but she spoke over me. You keep glancing at the door, wondering if you locked it. You did, but the chain's not on. I hadn't checked the chain. I got up, walked to the door, and there was the bolt locked but the chain hanging loose. I locked it with shaking hands. When I got back to my desk, I sat down slowly, phone pressed to my ear. Are you watching me right now? I asked. She laughed again. No, I'm just remembering. That word hit me like ice. Remembering? I asked. What does that mean? It means, she said softly, that this isn't the first time I've been here. I swallowed hard. When were you here? She didn't answer. She just kept going. There's dust on your window blinds. You keep meaning to clean them, but you never do. And the photo frame on your shelf, the one of your mother, it's tilted. You tilted it yourself last night. You told yourself it was so you wouldn't knock it over, but really, you just didn't want her looking at you. I swear I felt my skin crawl. I turned and looked at the frame. She was right. How do you know that? My voice broke. How do you know that? The hum got louder. That strange static in the background. Then her voice dropped even lower. Because, she whispered, I see through your eyes. My whole body went cold. She kept talking, her voice almost soothing now. When you pick up the pen, I feel the weight. When you touch the glass, I feel the coolness. When you blink, I see the dark. And when you look at yourself in the mirror, she trailed off. I didn't want to know what came next. What happens when I look in the mirror? I asked. Silence. I waited. Finally, she said, I smile. My breath caught. I didn't smile. I whispered. I know, she said. I couldn't take it anymore. I hung up, but as soon as I put the phone down, it buzzed again. Same number. Same feeling in my chest. I didn't want to answer, but I did. This time, she didn't speak right away. I could hear her breathing, steady, calm. Then, quietly, she said, Look at your webcam. I glanced up at the little black circle above my screen. The light wasn't on, but I still reached up and covered it with my thumb. She laughed, soft, almost affectionate. That's not where I am. My throat tightened. Then where? Inside, she said simply. And I swear for a split second I felt it. Like someone else blinked with my eyes. I didn't want to go back down there. The basement records room always felt wrong. Even before all this started, I hated it. The air was heavier than it should be, like the concrete was holding something in. And the lighting, thin, humming strips overhead, wasn't enough to reach the corners. But I had to. After what happened last night, I couldn't just sit at my desk, pretending things were normal. That voice, my voice, wasn't just some freak glitch. I could feel it. It wasn't over. So I asked Roy, our supervisor, about old call logs. Not the normal ones on the computer. Those go back about 5 years. I wanted the real archives. The paper kind. The kind no one checks unless the system crashes. He didn't ask why. He just looked at me for a moment, like he wanted to, but decided against it. Then he pointed to the basement keys. The metal door groaned when I pulled it open. A rush of cold air hit me as I stepped inside. It wasn't the kind of cold you get from AC. It was damp, almost wet, like something underground. The stairwell was steep, the walls sweating with a thin layer of moisture. Each step down felt quieter than the last, like the sound from upstairs weren't allowed here. At the bottom, the room spread out in low ceilings and rows of filing cabinets, each drawer labeled in faded black marker. 1998 to 2001, 2002 to 2004, 2005 to 2008. I found the one I needed, 2010 to 2012. The drawer squealed as I pulled it open. The sound bounced off the walls, too loud in the dead air. I dug through stacks of worn logbooks, each thick with yellowing pages. They were handwritten, names, addresses, call times. And then, June 14th, 2011. Caller. Me. Notes. Caller identified themselves as dispatcher currently on duty. Claimed to be real one. Voice match confirmed. Dispatcher became visibly shaken. Excused themselves after call. Did not return to shift. Missing persons report filed next day. My chest tightened. My fingers hovered over the ink, tracing the words. It wasn't just me. The missing dispatcher's name was Denise C. Her handwriting was in earlier pages, tight, neat letters. And then it just stopped after that night. I kept flipping. March 3rd, 2014. Caller. Me. Notes. Caller repeated dispatcher's first name 3 times. Claimed they were calling from same desk. Voice identical. Dispatcher on duty became agitated. Said, "You can't see what I'm seeing," before disconnecting call. Dispatcher left building. Never returned. Home found empty. Same thing. Different years, different people. All gone. I think I read at least 6 entries before I realized my breathing was too fast. I had to close the book. My hands were shaking, but not from the cold. Because every log was the same. The caller was always themselves. Always a perfect voice match. And always, the dispatcher vanished. The weirdest part? No official notes. No follow-up in the system. Like it never happened. Like someone made sure it wouldn't be investigated. When I finally came back upstairs, Roy was standing by the coffee machine. He didn't say anything when he saw the dust on my hands. But I swear his eyes followed me all the way back to my desk. That night, I sat staring at my computer screen, pretending to type reports. But all I could think about was, why me? Why now? I started replaying the voice in my head. My own voice. But there was something off about it. I didn't notice at first, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized it was like it was smiling while it talked. I know that doesn't make sense, but I could hear it, like a grin stretching too wide. The logbooks haunted me for days. Every time the phone rang, I froze for just a second too long. I kept waiting for it to happen again. And then it did. 3 nights later. It was around 2:20 a.m. The floor was dead quiet. Most of the other dispatchers were off getting coffee. Just me and the hum of the monitors. The phone rang. The caller ID was blank. Not even unknown number. Just empty. I picked up. "This is 911. What's your emergency?" Silence. Then, "Stop looking in the basement." It was me. My exact voice. I didn't say anything. My mouth went dry. "I know you read them," it said. "You shouldn't have." The line clicked dead. My hands were sweating so badly, I almost dropped the phone. I sat there for what felt like forever, listening to the empty line, my own reflection staring back at me in the dark screen. By the time I hung up, my heart was pounding so loud I swore it would draw attention. But when I glanced around, the room was still. No one noticed. No one ever notices. The next morning, I thought about telling Roy. But something told me not to. Not yet. Instead, I went back down to the basement. The air felt heavier this time, like it knew I was coming. I opened a different drawer, 1995 to 1997. My fingers were moving faster now, flipping through logs. I needed to know how far back it went. The first one I found was in 1996. Caller. Me. Notes. Caller stated dispatcher is not supposed to be here yet. Voice match confirmed. Dispatcher froze mid-call, said it's still wearing my face before disconnecting. Never located. It's still wearing my face. I closed the book too fast. The pages crumpled in the corner. I didn't want to read more, but I couldn't stop myself. Over and over, decades of the same thing. Different voices, same result. And always the same end. Vanished. I don't remember leaving the basement. I just remember standing back at my desk, staring at my reflection in a black monitor. For the first time, I noticed something I'd never paid attention to before. The reflection didn't quite move with me. The first call came in at 3:07 a.m. It was one of those quiet nights at the station where the silence starts to feel too heavy. The air was stale, the coffee in my mug had gone cold, and the only sounds were the soft hum of the fluorescent lights overhead and the faint buzz of the computer monitor in front of me. I remember leaning back in my chair, staring at the dispatch screen, my fingers drumming against the desk just to fill the air with something. That's when the phone rang, sharp and loud, cutting through the stillness like a blade. I slipped on my headset and answered the way I always do. 911, what's your emergency? There was no pause, no fumbling, just a man's voice, frantic and shaking. There's a fire, he said. His breathing was uneven, like he was struggling to get the words out between gulps of air. My house, it's burning. I can smell it. I can feel the heat. I straightened in my chair, already clicking through to pull up location services. Sir, I need your address. Can you get it to me? He rattled it off quickly, like he'd been rehearsing it in his head. I typed it in, my eyes flicking to the map on my screen. A small, rural road on the edge of town. Okay, sir, help is on the way. I told him, my voice calm, even though his panic was bleeding through the line. Is anyone else in the house with you? No, it's just me, but the smoke. The coughing started mid-sentence. Wet, choking coughs. I could hear the faint roar of flames in the background, a low, angry sound that seemed to swell as he gasped for breath. Stay low to the ground. I instructed, my own heartbeat picking up. Cover your mouth with a cloth if you can. Fire crews are coming, just hang on. And then, the line went dead. I stared at the empty call timer on my screen for a moment, my breath caught in my chest. Calls drop sometimes, but this one it felt wrong. I logged it, sent the address through, and within seconds heard the chatter over the radio as units confirmed they were en route. I sat there for a moment longer, headset still warm against my ear, trying to shake the sound of that man's coughing from my head. 15 minutes later, the phone rang again. Same number. I answered, my voice tight this time. 911, what's your emergency? There's a fire, the man said. Same voice. Same frantic edge. My skin prickled. My house. It's burning. I can smell it. I can feel the heat. I froze, my hand hovering over the keyboard. It was exactly the same. Not just the same words, the same pauses, the same shaky breath between sentences. Sir, I said slowly, what's your address? He rattled it off, exactly the way he had before. My stomach sank. I checked the map. Same location. But according to the fire crews, they were already there. They'd reported back 5 minutes ago. No sign of a fire. No smoke. No heat. Nothing. The house was dark and quiet, and no one had answered the door. "Sir, we already received this call," I said, my voice quieter now. There was no response. Just that wet, choking cough. Identical to before. And then the same sound of flames in the background. The same swell. The same cutoff. The line went dead again. I sat back in my chair, my mouth dry. The station felt colder somehow, like the temperature had dropped a few degrees. I replayed the call in my head, every word, every sound. It was impossible. Calls don't just repeat. Not like that. Not word for word. I pulled the audio file from the first call, then the second, and played them side by side. They matched perfectly. It wasn't just the same person saying the same thing. It was the same recording. But there was no record in the system of any playback. I got up and went to the break room, mostly because I needed to move. My hands were shaking just enough that I didn't want the others to see. Not that there were many others on shift tonight, just me, another dispatcher named Miller, and our overnight supervisor, Grace, who was half asleep in her office with the door cracked. Miller was leaning against the counter, scrolling through his phone when I walked in. He gave me a look. "You okay? You're pale as hell." I didn't know how to explain it without sounding crazy, so I just said, "Got a weird one." He raised an eyebrow, but didn't push. I poured myself more coffee, even though the last thing I needed was caffeine, making my heart pound harder. When I got back to my desk, the call log was still up. 2 calls. Same number. 15 minutes apart. Both from 3:07 a.m. I stared at that time for a long while before realizing how impossible it was. The second call wasn't 15 minutes later. The system time-stamped it at 3:07 a.m. Exactly the same as the first. I thought maybe it was a glitch. The system freezes sometimes or misreads a log. But the more I stared at it, the more the little hairs on my arms started to rise. I picked up the phone and called one of the fire crew leads who'd responded to the address. "Yeah, we were just there," he said, his voice groggy. "Nothing going on. Dark as can be. Place looked empty. Did you see anyone inside?" "Nope." Knocked, waited, circled around. No movement. Definitely no fire. When I hung up, I sat there for a long time, my eyes fixed on the address on my screen. The rural road. The empty house. And a man calling from inside it. Twice, at the exact same time. I don't know how long I sat there before the phone rang again. Same number. I answered slowly. 911. "What's your emergency?" "There's a fire." I closed my eyes. I thought I'd imagine the smell at first. It was faint, thin, like the echo of something that had burned hours ago. I was still at my desk, half listening to the low hum of the dispatch room, when the phone line lit up again. Not the main emergency line, not the priority channel, just the line, the one that felt different when it rang. It was the same caller from before, the same voice. "Fire," he said, but it wasn't urgent. Not like before. His voice was flat this time, like he was tired of saying it. "Sir," I said, "you already—" "It's still here," he interrupted. "The smoke. It doesn't go away." His breathing was shallow. I pictured him sitting in some dim kitchen, hunched over the receiver, watching the air ripple in front of his eyes. "Where are you calling from?" I asked again, even though I knew. I still had the address written in the corner of my pad. He gave the same location, word for word, the same pause between the street name and the number, the same slow delivery, like he was reading it off a page. And when he hung up, I just sat there. 15 minutes ago, we'd sent 2 units out there for a reported house fire. Flames visible, caller panicked, standard response. But when they'd arrived, there had been nothing. Not fires out, nothing. Not small kitchen incident, nothing. I mean nothing. No char marks. No heat. No water damage from sprinklers. Just a faint gray haze in the air. I remember the sound of Mark, one of the firefighters, over the radio. "Yeah, we've got smoke, but no source. Visibility about 20 feet. No active fire. No heat signatures." I could hear him breathing through the mask. Then a pause. "It's hanging in place. Like it's stuck." I'd written that down at the time without thinking about it. Like it stuck. They'd cleared the area, searched the building, checked the attic, the basement, the wiring. Nothing. By the time they left, the smoke still hadn't dispersed, just floated there ghost-like. And now the man was calling again. I didn't want to send anyone back. It felt pointless. But protocol's protocol. So I sent a smaller crew this time. 2 guys, just to check. On the radio, I heard their truck pull up. The sound of the door opening. Their boots on the pavement. The air on their end sounded thick. I could almost hear the smoke in the silence between words. Dispatch, yeah, he wasn't lying. Still got smoke here. Source? I asked. Nope, just. There was a pause. A long one. I could hear one of them shifting his gear. It's not moving. Like he cut off. I heard muffled talking between them. Not meant for the radio. Then, we're going to step inside. I didn't hear much after that for a while. Just faint static, little clicks in the line, like the air was pressing against the signal. Then one of them came back. Dispatch, you're not going to like this. We walked the entire perimeter. No burn marks. No melted wiring. But it's stronger inside than outside. And there's no smell. That made me stop, because I had smelled it. Even here, miles away, when the guy first called. That faint char in the back of my throat, the kind that sticks to your teeth. What do you mean no smell? I asked. Exactly what I said. We can see it. It's smoke, but no odor. You take your mask off, it's just air. Feels heavier, maybe, but... And then the line popped. Not like static. Not like interference. It was a wet pop, like a bubble bursting right inside the signal. After that, their voices got quieter, even though they were speaking the same. They cleared again. Same as before. No fire. No heat. Just the haze. The caller didn't come back this time, but I couldn't shake the feeling he would. I went outside for a minute, just to breathe in the night air. And that's when I noticed it. It was faint, almost invisible unless you were looking for it. But the haze was here too. Just the thinnest veil, drifting under the streetlight outside the station. I stood there, staring up at it. It wasn't moving with the wind. The breeze would lift my hair, brush my cheek, but the haze stayed still. It was like looking at a picture. I went back inside without saying anything. Around 3 a.m., the line rang again. Same tone, same weight. When I picked up, I didn't say, 911, what's your emergency? I just said, is it still there? The man didn't answer right away. I could hear a faint hum behind him, like an old refrigerator running in another room. Then, it's thicker now. His voice was lower this time, like he was standing in a different place. Have you left the house at all? I asked. No. Why not? He was quiet for a long time. Then, I think, if I open the door, it'll come in. That chilled me more than I want to admit. Because my first thought wasn't, what does he mean? My first thought was, he's probably right. I sent a team out again, against my better judgment. When they got there, the man didn't answer the door. The smoke outside was thicker than before. Still no smell. Still no heat. One of the responders said, almost offhand, it's like fog, but wrong. That word stuck with me the rest of the shift. By sunrise, nothing had changed. No one had figured out where it was coming from. I thought I'd leave it behind when I clocked out. But when I got home, the light through my blinds looked different. The air in my apartment was heavier. And in the corner of the room, where the sunbeam hit the wall, I could see it the faintest ripple. Like the haze had followed me home, that I don't remember when I first noticed the time. Maybe it had been like that for hours, and I was just too busy taking calls to care. But at some point, maybe between the woman crying about the man in her backyard and the guy reporting the same car accident as before, I looked up at the wall clock above the dispatch boards. 3:07 a.m. That was it. The second hand wasn't moving. The little ticket usually made was gone. I figured the battery was dead. It happened sometimes. The clock on the far wall had gone out last winter, and it stayed broken for weeks before anyone bothered to fix it. So I barely thought about it. I had a computer clock on my monitor anyway. But then I noticed something strange. My screen said 3:07 a.m. too. I frowned, thinking maybe the system froze. But the CAD software was still updating. Call logs were still timestamping. The green status lights on the phone lines kept blinking like normal. Everything was working, except the time. I clicked the bottom right corner of my monitor, pulling up the little digital clock menu. 3:07 a.m. The seconds weren't changing. That was when I glanced over at Kendra's desk. She was scribbling something on a notepad, headset on, nodding slowly to whoever was speaking in her ear. Her wall clock? 3:07 a.m. Every clock in the room was stuck. I remember opening my mouth to say something, but I didn't. I didn't want to sound crazy. Maybe it was a weird system-wide glitch. Maybe they were all synced to the same faulty server. Then the phone rang again. 911. What's your emergency? It was a man's voice, shaky, breathless. There's someone in my house. I straightened. Okay, sir. Can you tell me your address? He gave it without hesitation. My fingers flew over the keyboard. The address popped up, same one as before. Same house. Same man. I felt my stomach sink. Sir, did you call earlier tonight? Silence. Then earlier, I could hear him breathing hard through the line. The same pattern as before. Short, fast bursts like he'd been running. Sir, I have a record of you reporting this exact situation earlier, word for word. Are you sure? They're still in the house, he interrupted. His voice cracked. They never left. I froze. He had said that before, too. Exactly like that. And then came the sound, light footsteps on hardwood, far away, but moving closer. Sir, is there somewhere you can hide? I didn't hear his answer because the line went dead. I stared at the phone for a long moment before slowly hanging up. The call log popped up on my screen. Timestamp, 3:07 a.m. I glanced over at Kendra. Her headset was off. She was just sitting there, staring at her monitor. You okay? I asked. She blinked like she was coming out of a trance. Did your clock stop? She asked quietly. I nodded. She turned her screen toward me. Same thing, 3:07. And then she said it. My caller. I think I talked to him before. Same words. Same tone. Even the background noise was the same. We sat there for a moment, just listening to the room. Phone still rang. Key still clicked. The low hum of electronics was steady. Everything looked normal. But the air felt different. Heavier. Like the kind of pressure before a storm. Then another call came through. This time it was a woman. Please, you have to help me. I'm trapped in my bathroom. He's outside the door. Her voice shook. I asked for her address. It was the same woman from 2:43 a.m. The one whose line had gone silent halfway through. I went through the motions again, calming her down, telling her help was on the way. But in the back of my mind, I already knew how it would end. Halfway through, she whispered, "Oh, God, he's still there." And then the call ended. Timestamp, 3:07 a.m. It kept happening. Every single call was a repeat. Not similar. The exact same. Same words. Same background noises. Same way the voices broke at the same moments. Some of them I remembered from hours ago. Some from days. And yet, every timestamp was 3:07 a.m. I tried to check the server clock in the IT tools. It wouldn't load. The little spinning wheel just kept turning. When I tried my phone, the screen lit up but froze before it could unlock. No matter what I touched, the time stayed the same. Kendra was pale. This isn't possible. But it was happening. The weirdest part? Outside the big front windows, the world didn't look frozen. Cars still drove by. Streetlights still glowed. But it was all wrong somehow. Like watching a video loop that was just a fraction off from real life. You couldn't point to what was wrong, but your brain knew. Another call came in. I didn't want to answer. I don't even know why. I just knew something in me didn't want to hear it again. 911. What's your emergency? Silence. Then a low, slow whisper. You shouldn't be here. That wasn't one I recognized. But before I could respond, the voice continued. They're not going to stop this time. My throat tightened. Who's not going to stop? But the line cut. 3:07 a.m. I glanced over at Kendra. She had both hands over her mouth. My last caller, they said my name. That was when we realized something worse. The repeats were changing. Small things at first. A single word different. A pause where there wasn't one before. The sound of footsteps closer than last time. And each time, they sounded a little more aware of us. It was like whatever was on the other end wasn't just reenacting something. It was learning. Adjusting. The next call made my skin crawl. It was the man from the first call, the one with footsteps in his house. But instead of breathing fast, he was calm. Too calm. I see you, he said. I tried to keep my voice steady. Sir, where are you right now? In the room with the clocks, he whispered. I stared at the wall clock. Still 3:07. Kendra shook her head slowly, mouthing, "Don't ask." But I did. What do you mean? The hands aren't moving, he said. But they can still hear them ticking. Then he hung up. I swear, Salah, when I set the phone back in its cradle, I could hear it too. Not out loud. In my head, like the sound of a clock buried deep in the walls. Tick, 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 even though the hands never moved. Kendra suddenly stood. "I need air," she muttered. She walked toward the glass front doors, her shoes squeaking faintly on the tile. She reached for the handle and stopped. I followed her gaze. Outside, a man was standing on the sidewalk, perfectly still, facing the building. I couldn't make out his face, too much glare from the overhead lights, but his posture was wrong. Arms too straight, head tilted just enough to make you uncomfortable. We backed away from the doors. Neither of us said anything. The phone rang again. I answered. The man outside spoke through the line. "Don't look away." I slammed the receiver down. When I glanced back at the doors, he was gone. The rest of the shift was a blur of ringing phones and voices that shouldn't have known us, calling us by name, describing the room we were in, describing us in real time. And always the clock stayed frozen. When morning came, or at least when it should have, the supervisor walked in like nothing was wrong. He glanced at the wall clock and frowned. "Damn thing stopped again," he muttered, pulling out his phone. 3:07? That's weird. My watch says 8:14. But when I looked at my own watch, it was moving again. Tom had started. We never told him what happened. We never told anyone. But every night since, I catch myself glancing at the clock, waiting for the second hand to stop. And sometimes, just for a moment, I think I can hear the ticking again. I don't know how long it's been since 3:07 a.m. It's strange, the longer you sit in one place, the less you trust your own body. My back aches, my throat is dry, my eyes sting, but the clock on the wall hasn't moved in. God knows how many hours. Every few minutes, I catch myself glancing at it, like maybe I'll finally see the second hand twitch. But it's frozen there, the thin red line stuck between the 3 and the 4 like it's caught mid-thought. At first, I thought maybe the battery had died, but that wouldn't explain the others. The one above the break room door, the one in the hallway outside the call center, even the old analog in the corner of the supervisor's office. All of them, 3:07. I try my phone next. The screen lit up, but it just said 3:07 a.m. in that dim blue light. No ticking seconds, no blinking colon, just still. I checked the computers, same thing. Every system clock frozen. Even the dispatch logs wouldn't advance the time. Calls were still coming in, but according to the system, they were all at 3:07 a.m. For a while, it was almost funny, like a glitch, a bad dream. We joked about it on the floor, called it the longest night shift ever. But the calls kept coming, and after a while, no one laughed anymore. I remember thinking, okay, fine, maybe the clocks are broken, but eventually, the sun will rise. It didn't. I swear there should have been light by now. I kept walking to the far end of the hallway, where there's a narrow emergency exit door with a small wire glass window. Outside, there's a row of parking lot lamps, but they were still glowing like it was midnight. Beyond them, nothing, just black, like the world had swallowed itself whole. I don't even remember when I stopped expecting dawn. The first time I noticed the silence between calls, it felt wrong. Normally, there's this constant hum in a dispatch room, printers spitting out incident slips, muffled voices over the radio, typing, phones ringing. But for maybe 10 minutes straight, nothing. Just the sound of my own breath in my headset. Then the line lit up again. I picked it up, expecting another fire alarm glitch, or maybe one of the regulars we get in the small hours. The lonely ones who call just to hear another human voice. But the line was empty. No static. No breathing. No sound at all. 911. What's your emergency? Silence. I should have hung up. I should have marked it as a missed dial. But something in me didn't want to. I kept the line open, waiting, feeling my own pulse in my fingertips. When the voice came, it was so faint I almost thought I imagined it. You can't leave. It was a man's voice, but cracked and uneven, like someone speaking after screaming for hours. I froze. Sir, what's your location? A pause. Then, you can't leave. Not until you finish. Finish what? Nothing. Just the line going dead. I took off my headset and rubbed my eyes, trying to convince myself it was just some cruel prank. But the pit in my stomach said otherwise. By the time I looked up, Another call was already blinking on my screen. It was the same voice. "You're still here." I didn't answer that time. I just listened. And after a few seconds, I heard something in the background. A ticking sound. Slow. Steady. Not like a normal clock. Too heavy. Almost like footsteps pacing in a circle. "Why are you doing this?" I finally asked. The line crackled. Then, "It's always been 3:07. I hung up. But the calls didn't stop. Some are normal. A car accident. A domestic disturbance. A woman whispering that she could hear someone breathing in her attic. I handled them like I always do. But there was no movement on the screens. No timestamps. No sense that any of these calls were moving time forward. And then there were the other ones. The voice calls. The ones where they didn't give addresses. Didn't even sound alive. One of them whispered my name. I don't get my name on calls. Not my real one. That's when I stopped trying to convince myself this was just a bad shift. I tried to leave after that. I told the others I needed fresh air, that I was just going to step outside for a minute. No one stopped me. I don't think they even heard me. They were all hunched over their desks, frozen in that same dull rhythm. Answer, type, hang up, answer. Like they couldn't hear me at all. The hallway to the exit felt longer than it should have been. Every step echoed. The lights above buzzed, flickered, came back. I reached for the crash bar on the exit door, shoved it open, and there was nothing. Not darkness like night. Not even like a blackout. Just nothing. Like the world past that threshold had been erased. The air was cold and still, pressing against me without moving. I couldn't see the ground. I couldn't see my own hands past the frame of the door. I stepped back inside, closed it, locked it. Back at my desk, I noticed something else. The calls were no longer coming from outside numbers. The caller IDs, when they showed anything, were coming from inside the building. One said supervisor office. I picked it up. The voice was mine. "You shouldn't have opened that door." I slammed the headset down so hard it slid across the desk. My breathing was too loud in the empty space around me. I kept thinking about that first voice. "You can't leave until you finish." Finish what? The only thing I could think of was the shift. But how do you finish a shift if the clock never moves? If the sun never rises? If the calls never end? I don't know how much longer I sat there before I realized my hands were trembling. My coffee had gone cold. My monitor still read 3:07 a.m. And then, for just a second, I heard it ticking. That slow, heavy sound. I looked around, but no clocks were moving. It was coming from the headset. I put it on, even though the line wasn't lit. The voice, mine again, said, "When the ticking stops, so will you." I threw the headset across the desk. But deep down, I knew I'd pick it back up again. Because what else is there to do here, in this place where nothing changes? Where the sky never lightens? Where the only proof that time still exists is the calls. Always the calls. I keep telling myself, maybe if I just keep answering, eventually I'll get the one that ends it. The one that lets me leave. But there's another part of me, when I try not to listen to, that thinks maybe the calls aren't keeping me here. Maybe they're the only thing stopping me from finding out what's waiting when they finally stop. So I sit. I wait. I answer. And it's still 3:07. I was only 3 weeks into the job when I found the box. Back then, everything about the dispatch center still felt too big for me. The rows of blinking consoles. The constant hum of the servers. The smell of burnt coffee that seemed to live in the walls. I was still learning how to sit still for 12 hours straight without losing my mind. Still learning how to keep my voice calm when someone else's world was falling apart. It was a Tuesday night shift. Quiet. Quieter than it should have been. The air outside was freezing. You could hear it in the way the old heater in the corner rattled like it was coughing. My supervisor, Elaine, was in the kitchen making herself tea, and the other 2 dispatchers had gone out for a smoke. So, for the first time since I'd started, I was alone in the main room. That's when I noticed the filing cabinet. It was in the far corner, half hidden behind a rack of dusty binders. The thing looked older than the building. Beige metal, chipped along the edges, the kind you'd see in those faded photographs from the 80s. One of its drawers was stuck open just enough to notice. I don't know why I went over. Maybe because there were no calls coming in. Maybe because my brain just wanted something to do that wasn't staring at the clock. When I tugged on the drawer, it groaned like it hadn't been opened in years. And inside, pushed all the way to the back, was the box. It was small, maybe 2 shoeboxes stacked together. No markings, no label, just plain brown cardboard, its top sealed shut with brittle masking tape that had yellowed with age. I should have left it. That's what I kept telling myself, even as I was peeling the tape away with my fingernail. Inside, cassettes. Dozens of them. They were all black, each with a little white sticker on one side. But the stickers were blank. No dates. No names. No case numbers. In training, they told us that all calls were recorded, stored, and cataloged for a minimum of 10 years. The idea that any tape could be sitting here, unlabeled, undocumented, didn't make sense. I picked one up. It was warm. Not in a room temperature way, but the way something feels when you've been holding it in your palm for a while. Which was impossible. The tape had been buried under others in a sealed box. I slipped it into the old player on the counter, one we still kept for transferring old calls to digital. I pressed play. For the first 3 seconds, it was just static. Then breathing. Slow, deep, like someone standing too close to the mic. No voices, no background noise. Just that breath pulling in, pushing out. I waited for someone to speak. They never did. After maybe 30 seconds, the breathing changed. Faster now, uneven, like the caller was trying not to cry. And then there was a sound behind it, a faint tapping in some kind of rhythm. That's when Elaine walked back in. "What are you doing?" she asked. I nearly jumped out of my chair. I fumbled for an excuse. "I found this box in the cabinet. The tapes don't have any labels, so I was just..." She crossed the room, took one look at the box, and her face went pale. "Put it back," she said. There was no raise in her voice. No explanation. Just those 3 words, firm enough to make my stomach drop. I was just. Now. I stopped the player, rewound the tape, and dropped it back into the box. My hands felt clumsy, like they didn't know how to work. Elaine didn't touch the box herself. She just stood there until I picked it up and shoved it back into the drawer. Then she closed the cabinet with a hard shove. "That's archive material," she said. "It's not for you. But why is it in here? These don't look..." She cut me off with a look I hadn't seen from her before. Not angry, just tired. "Some things don't need to be cataloged," she said, and then she turned and went back to her desk like nothing happened. The rest of the shift was uneventful, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. And here's the thing. Once you've heard something like that breathing, it stays with you. You'll be sitting there, taking a burglary report or dispatching EMTs, and a part of your brain is still back there in that static, listening. 3 nights later, I made a decision. Elaine was on vacation. The senior dispatcher was covering her spot, and he spent most of the night in the break room watching TV on his phone. So, just after 2 a.m., I went back to the cabinet. The box was still there, exactly where I'd left it. I carried it to my desk, plugged in the player, and took the first tape on top. This one started with a voice. A man's voice. Shaky, whispering. "They're in the walls," he said. I froze. He kept talking, almost too quiet to hear. He said the noises had started weeks ago. That at first, it was just scratching like rats. Then footsteps. Then the breathing. "I can hear them moving when I'm in bed," he said. "They wait until the lights are off. Sometimes I think I see them in the corners, but when I turn..." There was a sharp thud on the tape, and the man gasped. "They know I'm talking to you," he whispered. The call ended there. No resolution. No dispatcher voice. No stay on the line. Just silence after that last breath. I checked the back of the tape for a date code. Nothing. I tried another. This one was worse. A woman crying, full-on sobbing, but she never said what was wrong. I could hear something else in the background, though. Not a voice. Not music. It was... I don't know how to describe it. Like a low hum, but uneven, almost alive. She cried for 2 minutes straight. Then, without warning, she stopped. And the hum got louder. That's when I heard a second voice on the line. It didn't sound human. It wasn't speaking English or any language I know, but it was speaking to her. And she answered. I stopped the tape. I felt sick. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at that box. My skin was crawling, like the sound was still in the room with me. I put the tapes back and shoved the box in the drawer again. I told myself I wouldn't touch them again. But that's the problem. When you hear something you're not supposed to hear, you start wondering why you weren't supposed to. And the wondering is worse than the fear. I kept thinking, who took those calls? Why weren't they logged? What happened to the people on the other end? 2 nights ago, I broke my promise. Not because I wanted to, because of the call we got around midnight. It came in on a deadline, one that hasn't been in service for years. The system flagged it as untraceable. When I answered, no one spoke, just breathing. Slow, deep, the same as the first tape. I didn't plan to listen to the second tape. After that first one, after hearing that man whisper my name a call from 20 years ago, I told myself it was just some old recording glitch. An inside joke, maybe. Static messing with my head. Something that could be explained if I thought about it long enough. But the thing about working nights at the dispatch center is you have way too much time to think. There are stretches where the phone doesn't ring for an hour. Just you, the hum of the fluorescent lights, and the faint ticking of the wall clock. And the box. That stupid, unmarked box sitting under the desk, heavy with tapes. It was past 2 a.m. when I caved. The other 2 dispatchers were out, one doing a coffee run, the other in the break room, scrolling on her phone. It was just me, the empty call floor, and the black recorder. The second tape didn't even have a label. Just a strip of yellowing Scotch tape across the plastic case, blank. I slid it in and pressed play. At first, it was just dead air. Not even static, just nothing. Then a voice faded in. It was a woman. Soft, shaky. Hello? Is anyone there? I adjusted the volume. I'm not sure where I am. I woke up in the woods. I've been walking for hours. The trees, they all look the same. She was crying, but trying to keep her voice low, like she didn't want someone or something to hear her. I leaned closer to the speaker. The date stamp on the call wasn't possible. The numbers flickered on the little display. August 19th, 1979. I froze. The dispatch center wasn't built until 1995. In 79, this place was just an empty lot. This is not a joke, please. If anyone's there, my name is. The audio cracked, warped. For a second, it sounded like her voice bent, like a record slowing down. When it came back, she was breathing fast, running. They're behind me. I can hear them. I felt my skin prickle. The sound of twigs snapping. Heavy footsteps that weren't hers. They don't talk, she whispered, but I know they see me. I wanted to stop the tape, but I didn't. My finger hovered over the button. Useless. The last thing she said before the line cut was, I think they've been here longer than me. And then, silence. I stared at the recorder, waiting for something else, but the tape just clicked and spun on empty until it hit the end. I sat back, heart pounding. The name she almost said, I never got it. And the date, there was no way to fake that on these old machines. They burned it into the call the second it came in. I rewound it and listened again, trying to catch more detail in the background. There were no sirens, no city noise, just wind, leaves, and those footsteps. When the others came back, I didn't mention it. I shoved the tape back in a box. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. The next night, I told myself I'd just take one more, just to see if it was some kind of prank someone had been running years ago. The third tape was different. It started mid-sentence, a man's voice, older, slow, like he was choosing his words carefully. I've been here since the sirens, he said. I don't remember when they stopped. He coughed, a deep, rattling sound. Thought maybe this was a shelter. But there's no one here. Just me, and the girl in the hall. The hairs on my neck lifted. You should see her, he said, almost chuckling. She doesn't blink. Not once. Just stares. I close my eyes and she's closer. Every time. The man's breathing grew shallow. Thing is, he said, I don't think she eats. Or sleeps. Or there was a loud thump like something hit the phone, and then nothing. The date stamp on that one was April 11th, 1983. 12 years before we had phones, before we had a building. I started digging that night. When my shift ended, I went home and searched news archives. August 79, nothing obvious. April 83, a few missing persons reports, but nothing tying what I heard. Still, the more I looked, the more the box started to feel like something dangerous. By the fourth tape, I had stopped caring about sleep. It was a kid's voice, maybe 10 years old. I found the door, he said quietly. The one they don't use. There was a scraping sound like metal on concrete. If I keep it open, maybe I can. A pause. A faint hum, like air rushing from somewhere deep underground. Then the boy's voice got strange. like he was talking and whispering at the same time. Don't follow the lights. They don't lead out. Click. End of tape. Date, June 2nd, 1981. I sat there for a long time after that, staring at the black plastic of the recorder. My reflection in it looked pale, almost sick. There were more tapes. Dozens. Every single one I listened to had the same impossible date. All before this place even had a phone line. And all of them were voices of people who, as far as I could tell, never came back. By the end of the week, I was hearing them when I wasn't even near the machine. I'd be answering a regular call, some drunk guy reporting his neighbor's dog barking, and I'd swear I heard that woman's breathing under his voice. Or I'd be pouring coffee in the break room and hear the boy whisper, "Don't follow the lights," just under the hum of the fridge. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? But last night was different. I was alone again around 3 a.m. when I heard something from under the desk. Not the box moving, not the sound of tape shifting. A voice, muffled, inside the box. It was saying my name, and the worst part, it was my voice that I didn't even notice the tape at first. It wasn't in the neat pile I'd stacked on my desk the night before. It wasn't even dusty like the others. It was just sitting there, dead center. The same faded beige plastic as the rest, but the label was different. No handwriting, no marker strokes, just a single strip of white tape with one word stamped on it in block letters. Tonight. I remember staring at it for way too long, like the word itself was some kind of threat. My mind kept trying to brush it off. Maybe I just missed it yesterday. Maybe I was tired. Maybe the label was already there and I didn't notice. But the thing is, I'd gone through every single cassette in that box. Twice. It wasn't there. And yet, here it was. I told myself I'd log it later. I even set it off to the side under a sticky note that said, "Do not play yet." But that note didn't matter. It's like the thing knew I was going to press play. I always do. Around 2:30 a.m., the center was dead quiet. Just me, the hum of the fluorescents, and the slow tick of the clock on the wall. My coffee was cold. My eyes burned. I thought maybe I'd earn a break from staring at the call logs by listening to one more tape. So I picked it up. When I slid into the old player, the sound came in sharp, like the tape had been recorded just minutes ago. No static, no hiss, just my voice. It was eerie how clear it was. 911, what's your emergency? That's what I said. Exactly the way I say it when I'm trying to sound calm. But here's the thing. Those weren't my old words. They weren't from a training exercise. I remembered every call I'd taken over the past 3 weeks, and this wasn't one of them. There was a pause on the tape, and then I heard breathing. Not the frantic, shallow gasps I usually get when someone's panicked. This was careful, measured, like someone wanted me to know they were breathing. "Hello," my recorded voice said. The breathing got louder. "Sir, if you can hear me, I need you to say something." And then a whisper, not a voice I recognized. Not even sure if it was a man or a woman. Just a low, drawn-out word. "Listen." On the tape, I went silent. That's rare for me. I usually keep talking, filling the space so they know I'm still there. But my voice had just stopped. The whisper came again, a little louder this time. "Listen to me. You need to." And then this sound. God, I can't even describe it right. Like metal screaming under pressure. Like a whole building bending. The tape warbled. The whisper cut off. And I heard myself say something that made my stomach drop. "Sir, I think someone's in my house." It was me. My voice. Calm, but shaking underneath. And then the line went dead. That was it. I sat there staring at the player like it was going to explain itself. But all I could think was, this hasn't happened. I haven't taken that call. I haven't said those words. Not yet. The rest of my shift felt wrong. Every time the phone rang, I thought it would be that call. Every time I answered, I half expected to hear the breathing. But it didn't come. Not that night. Not the next. But the tape stayed on my desk like it was waiting for me to catch up. 2 nights later, around the same time, 2:37 a.m., the phone rang. It was a routine call at first. A noise complaint, some neighbor drama. I almost forgot about the tape. But halfway through, my headset picked up this faint second sound under the caller's voice. Breathing. Slow. Steady. Careful. I froze. Didn't say a word. And then, that whisper. "Listen." I swear my skin crawled. The noise complaint caller was still talking, oblivious, but in my other ear, the voice spoke right to me. You need to. The same metallic scream blasted through the line. I ripped my headset off, but I could still hear it, faint like it was in the walls. When I put the headset back on, the caller was gone. Just silence. And then my own voice. Calm, but trembling. Sir, I think someone's in my house. It wasn't me speaking in real life. I wasn't even at home. But in that moment, the words on the tape became real, spilling into the present. And when the line went dead, I knew, whatever was on that tape, it's not from the past. It's not from the future either. It's from something else. Something that doesn't care about time. I thought about destroying it, burning it. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't matter. The voice had already reached me. And I think it's still waiting for the rest of that call to happen. I don't know why I pressed play. Maybe because I thought I'd heard everything. Maybe because I wanted to prove to myself that these tapes couldn't hurt me. Or maybe because deep down, I already knew it was waiting for me. The last cassette sat in my palm, heavier than it should have been. The label was blank. No faded marker. No smudged pencil scratches like the others. Just black plastic, cold against my skin. I turned it over in my hands, and for a moment, I caught my reflection in the little plastic window where the spools sat. My eyes looked wrong, too wide, like they weren't blinking enough. The room was quiet except for the low hum of the dispatch consoles. Midnight shift was always like this. Empty air, buzzing lights, the occasional chair creak. It was the kind of quiet that didn't just settle around you. It got inside you. I slid the tape into the player. The plastic clicked in, and my finger hesitated above the play button. My stomach felt hollow, like it was pulling inward. Then I pressed it. For a second, there was only static, a dry hiss like wind dragging over gravel. Then breathing. Not just any breathing. Mine. I froze. My mouth went dry instantly. I know my own breathing. The slight hitch on the inhale. The quiet throat click at the start of the exhale. I've heard it my whole life in recordings, in voicemails, in those awkward videos my friends used to take. But hearing it here now was different, because I hadn't recorded this. The breaths were slow, careful, like whoever it was didn't want to be heard. I counted along with them without meaning to. 1, 2, inhale. 1, 2, exhale. My hand was still resting on the player, like if I let go, something would happen. Then I heard it, a soft metal sound. The door handle to the dispatch room. It turned. I turned my head instinctively, looking at the real door just 10 feet away. It was shut. The little rectangular window was black in the night. But on the tape, the handle clicked. The door creaked open, and my breathing, my recorded breathing, quickened. I gripped the edge of the desk, my nails biting into the laminate. My eyes were locked on that door in real life, waiting for it to move. On the tape, I heard footsteps. Slow ones. Rubber soles against the carpet. Coming closer. I wanted to stop it. Eject the tape. Throw it across the room. But my hand wouldn't move. It was like my body was locked in place, my muscles listening as much as my ears. The recorded footsteps stopped. The breathing got louder, sharper, like whoever I was in the tape had pressed their mouth too close to the mic. And then, in the faintest whisper, I heard my own voice. Don't turn around. My chest felt like it caved in. I sat there, staring at the console, at the blinking little green lights. The air in the room seemed thicker now, like it was pushing in on me from all sides. On the tape, something scraped against the desk. In real life, I heard it too, right behind me. I spun around so fast my chair nearly tipped. The room was empty, just the shadows pooling under the counters. The metal filing cabinet in the corner. But my headset, the one I wasn't wearing, was swaying on its hook like something had just brushed past it. On the tape, there was a single, heavy inhale. And then silence. Not static. Not dead air. Just nothing. I waited. My whole body was tense. Then, suddenly, the sound of the player ejecting. Not in real life, but in the recording. The click, the soft whir of the tape stopping. And after that, faint but unmistakable, the exact same hum of the dispatch room lights that I was hearing right now. It was recording this moment. The moment I was still in. The moment I hadn't even finished yet. I stood up so fast the chair slammed into the counter behind me. My hand went for the power strip, but before I could pull it, the tape started again on its own. More breathing. Still mine. Faster now. And the sound of the door opening again. I looked up at the real door, and this time it was moving. The handle turned with an awful, slow click. Something on the other side pushed it open just enough to let the darkness spill in from the hallway. Not the dim yellow light I knew was out there. Just black, like someone had painted over the doorway. On the tape, I heard a voice. My voice. It's already inside. The words didn't sound like me, even though they were. They sounded resigned, like I'd already lost. I backed away, my shoulder hitting the filing cabinet. I didn't want to look at the door, but not looking felt worse. The gap in the doorway stayed open, swallowing the light from the room. And then, I swear on everything, the breathing on the tape and my own breathing synced up perfectly. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And in that rhythm, the footsteps started again. Closer. I grabbed the player, ripping the tape out. The ribbon inside stretched, tangled, spilling between my fingers. The sound kept going anyway. The player wasn't even running, but the breathing, the footsteps, the hum, all of it kept spilling out into the room. I slammed my hands over my ears. It didn't help. The sound was inside my head now. The footsteps stopped. And then, right against my ear, not in the tape, not in the room, but inside me, my voice whispered one last thing. Turn around. I don't remember doing it. My body just obeyed. The door was wide open, and something was standing there. Not moving, not breathing, just watching. Its shape was wrong, too tall for the frame, but its head was tilted exactly the way mine tilts when I'm trying to hear something. And even in the dark, I could tell its mouth was open, just enough to breathe. The same way I do. I blinked, and it was gone. Just the empty doorway. The hallway lights flickering like nothing had happened. The sound stopped. The tape lay in pieces on the floor. I told myself I was imagining it. That the late shift, the caffeine, the weird old tapes had gotten into my head. But when I sat back down at the console, my headset was already on the desk, and the call light was flashing. When I answered, the voice on the other end was mine. And it was breathing,